Okay, Diane Bailey. Here. Stephen Booker,
Present.
Joseph Chen, Michael Clausen, Kathleen Goforth, Melee Himuli. Here. Aurelio Fizar,
Here.
Gail Lee, John McKenna,
Here.
Jason Mendelson,
Present.
Cheryl Schaff, Remy Tan,
Here.
Robert Here. Thank you. We have a forum.
Thanks. Next is to ask anyone of the public or anyone of the membership who wants to make a comment of items that are not already on the agenda. Please signal that in the room. Go ahead, please, Stephen.
Yes, thank you, Jason. I don't know if many of you know, but I'm on the board of directors for San Mateo Police Department Police Activities League. And they're trying to build the bond between cops and kids, and they do a lot of outreach in underserved communities. And one of their largest fundraisers is their annual golf tournament, which is gonna be in Half Moon Bay this year, Friday, October the 3rd. And there's different sponsorship levels for foursomes and so on and so forth. And I just wanted to present that to PCE, maybe someone on the board of directors here or different city council members or whatever. If you guys could put that out and advertise that, if anybody in the room wants more information about that, I'd be more than happy to give it to you. But it's an awesome time and it benefits a lot of children in the community. So thank you for allowing me to present that.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thanks, Stephen.
Absolutely.
Pass them around that way, also.
Oh, yeah.
One more pass them around.
I can get some more copies too.
Yeah.
And I can email it to you.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah, pass it back.
Good.
Thanks, Stephen.
Is there anybody online?
No.
Okay, do we have any board members on?
Okay, great.
All right.
Any comments from the public back there? All right.
I got a shake earlier. Okay. All right, great. Then I'm going to move or request a motion to set the agenda and approve the consent agenda. Referring to the minutes of June 12th, my regular meeting.
I'll move to approve.
Thank you, Diane. Could I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Manny. All right, so we have two, and can we do a unanimous vote because everyone's in the room? We have no one participating. Are there any special rules?
Yep.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Uh,
Any opposed? There being none, it passes unanimously and we can move on. Okay. Bear with me because I'm not as prepared as I would like to be on the chair report, which is really a board chair report, hybrid report here. So I have this, all right. So before we begin this, I spoke to Donna extensively today. So I'll add to what's on the slide here to the best of my ability. And I will try to answer questions, but I cannot answer most of them. So I tell you in advance, we will hopefully get some of the answers if you have any in the future. But the request we made, Kathleen and I and staff made, was to just get some clarity on where we're at in terms of our own future composition of this advisory committee or something like it. And we were told that there's a standing committee, which we knew about from before. Its purpose is to explore ways to evolve all of the board standing committees to best serve PC in the next 5 to 10 years. It's a board-driven effort with the following members serving in an ad hoc capacity. So Chair Colson, Vice Chair Medina, and then Directors Mack and Ragsdale and Taylor. As you know, Directors Mack and Ragsdale have been liaisons to us, as has Director Colson in the past. Their timeline is to start it very soon. Their hope is to complete it in the fall. And then they're going to do the same with the audit and finance and all the other, the executive committee, all the committees. They think that it is a good way to do corporate governance, and they haven't done it in a while, to make sure that everything is lined up. The impacts on the current operations where the members whose terms have expired may extend their term to the end of 2025, and then please continue the current work plan that's currently in place. I will point out that we asked some follow-up questions. I will give some of those answers. One of the important ones, Kathleen, I hope I can share, that she asked was, are there issues? Are there things we should be responding to? And the answer I got definitively is no. There is nothing. That they love what we're doing. There's nothing they want us to do differently. They're very appreciative of what we do. They're just preparing for the future, whatever that might mean, and doing an internal investigation across all the different groups to figure out what it is they want to do. What I asked them was, should the working groups continue? Because our mandate was to prepare a report in April to deliver to the board before the term would have ended. Their answer was, please keep the working groups reporting or continue the working groups. We look forward to the report outs. I said, when do you want those? They said December would be fine. So to continue the mission that was prescribed before, it would have ended to continue that as we're doing it. Do they want any comments or input from the CAC? We have all the survey information, which was the report show prepared a couple of years ago. They will likely have questions and want input and feedback on a few of those topics. Do you want to agendize any of this for a future meeting so you can present to us? Sure, we can set that up in the fall, but we aren't sure of the timing yet. Could board members come to the meetings? And she did reach out. Unfortunately, they could not come to this meeting. And the answer was, it's been difficult to find someone without conflicting meetings or travel for this current meeting time. But they have confidence that we can have the staff articulate that this is a 10-year look at the executive committee, the audit and finance committee, and the CAC to ensure efficacy and best practices. And I asked again who our liaisons were, and our liaisons are again Colleen, but she has a permanent conflict at this time. Who is, remember, the Director Mackin from Brisbane, and also Director Ragsdale, who's come before, and also Director Colson herself, and then also Director Taylor, who's from Portola Valley, who I don't know yet. And we're going to see, they couldn't come tonight, but they will be coming in the future. I'm also to remind everyone that our August meeting has been canceled, and that we will be meeting in September and have a pretty full agenda then. So that is happening, and presumably that will happen for the rest of the year. I know I'll speak for myself. They did ask those of us who would have termed out or expired in the regular course to extend, and the three of us, including myself, have agreed. So we will have this complement through December, at least to the extent that we know that at this time. And that was the report out on that. Kathleen and I have asked before what's going on, and this was the response to all of that. And I'm very appreciative we did get that. And I did speak to Chair Colson today about all of this and was assured of everything I just said to you here. Did I forget anything on that front?
No, I'll just add that, of course, we did run a recruitment process for the CAC before we all knew, earlier this year, before we knew it was going to happen. So we do have some folks who applied who are kind of pending. So we've been reaching out to them periodically to let them know to just hang in there.
Okay. I will say, I think I said this a few months ago, I had been personally termed out, which I wasn't aware of. And so I thought I'd be done a few months ago. And then they did ask us to stay on, and then they asked us again this time to stay on through December. And it's my understanding, and I've confirmed it with most of the people here, that that's the case for everybody who was in that position. So I'm grateful for all of you for that and for sticking around to finish off at least this term, which I guess is extended through December. Okay, great. Okay, is there any discussion on that? And if there are any questions you could ask, we could ask staff or ask to be requested in the future.
When you have the two members, also in your vote.
Is everyone comfortable with me sharing that? Do you want to out yourself? Go ahead. It's Stephen and Kathleen. I don't know if it's private or not. There you go. Okay. Okay. Any other questions? Any public comment? Any public comment online?
No.
Okay, thank you. Sorry that took so long on that one. I'm now getting into the fun stuff. So I'm very happy that our CFO, Nick Bajor, is here to give us two, possibly one and maybe two reports here, but at least one big one on what's going on with the Peninsula Clean Energy budget. So please take it away.
Good evening, everyone. Nice to see some of you again or meet some of you. Thanks for being here to listen to what I think is a fascinating topic. Not everyone else does love numbers and budgets, but I'll try to make it as interesting as possible. This is a presentation I've now given a couple times. I've tweaked it a little bit just as time's gone by, but it's largely the same as I presented most recently to the board, was it 2 weeks ago or so, where the board officially approved the budget, but I'll walk you through that process. I'd love to not sit here and drone on, so would encourage any questions if people have them. I'll try to make it as minimally technical as possible, but please jump in if you have any questions. Sometimes I get ahead of myself. So with that, let me just talk on sort of how we got to where we are now, a little trip down memory lane on the whole process. This budget, we're kind of, I'd say actually we're done, but it really started in March. We've been working with all the various directors and Sean Marshall and Shalini to come up with the budgets, very cross-functional pushing back where appropriate, finding areas for opportunities for improvement, for budget reduction, things like that. We presented, I guess you could officially call it the first draft, but as you can imagine, there was a lot of iterations before that. But we presented the official first draft to the Audit and Finance Committee on May 12th, so it's almost 3 months ago from today. It was a lively discussion. They were generally supportive, had some comments, questions, which we then took back and sort of reworked for the next month. We then came back to the Finance and Audit Committee for the second time, as well as the Executive Committee on June 9th. They meet on the same day. There was a bunch of small changes. The only material change between the May 12th and the June 9th was that we did update our revenue and rate assumptions, both unfortunately lower. Well, not unfortunately, I guess, both lower, primarily because of, at the time, it was the proposed PCIA decision. It's since been finalized, and I'll walk you through that a little more later on. But that will result in a higher PCIA for our customers starting in January of 2026. We obviously want to, we do our best to offset our customers' costs, and so we lowered our rates, and so that reduced our revenues. At that meeting, or those meetings on June 9th, both the committees were supportive. They unanimously recommended approval of the budget to the board with a few minor suggested changes, which we then incorporated, and then we took back to the full board on June 26th, so 2 weeks later, for their approval. So you can see it's sort of been ongoing for a while. The budget, which I'll walk through in a lot of detail in a second, but basically includes a little less than 400 million, 392 million to be exact, of costs. On the good side, that represents a 4% decrease in costs from the last year, the year that just ended, primarily due to lower cost of energy, which is great. On the revenue side, it's about $381 million. That also represented a year-over-year decrease, a bigger decrease, about 16%, which is great news for our customers because that's lower costs for them. Good question.
You wanted a question, right?
Yeah, please do.
Can you like specifically talk about what forms of energy are actually lower? Is it across the
Yes.
board? Or?
Yeah, let me, I have a sort of a page on
Okay.
each of the cost categories. So this is kind of just the umbrella punchline, but I will go into each of the components of the cost of energy and what's driving that 4% decrease, what's driving the decrease in revenue. It included in this assumption, the revenue assumption, is that we maintain our current rates they are today, which represents a 10% discount to PG&E. So we essentially recommended to the board, and there was really nothing to vote on because it was a no change, but no change in our rates, at least on July 1st, which we're obviously now on July 10th or 11th. The revenue assumption, which I'll go into in more detail, does assume a very significant reduction in rates starting next year. So that's why revenues are so much lower year over year. That's basically to coincide with what we expect to be an increase in the PCIA and a reduction in PG&E rates. And so if we want to still offer our customers a 10% discount, we have to lower our rate. So I'll go into that a little more detail, but that's what's driving the year over year decrease. We also said that we're going to return to the board in January, so 6 months from then, with what we call a budget refresh, sort of see where we are on the budget costs. I will also know at that point what the PG&E generation rates are for 2026, what the PCIA is for 2026, and we'll come in with a recommendation. Again, right now, we're assuming a 35% reduction, but that's not board approved or anything. That's just what's assumed in the budget. So that's at a high level. Let me now go through each of the cost categories to answer your question. So there's basically a page on each of the main cost components. They look the same, but I'll walk you through since it's the first page. Obviously, this is our cost of energy. Just as a reminder, this is by far and away our largest cost component. This represents about 90% of our costs. We do our best to manage these costs, and Roy, who I know you've all met with or presented, his team does a great job keeping these costs as low as possible. I will say we are largely beholden a little bit to the markets. You know, when the energy prices and costs go up, you know, we do our best to minimize the increase, but we are somewhat, you know, we have just have to deal with that. On the flip side, when prices go down, which they are next year, we benefit from that. So again, don't want to say we don't do what we can, but a lot of this is driven by the commodity markets. So as far as columns, the leftmost column, fiscal year 2025, that's the year that just ended. As a reminder, we're a June 30th fiscal year end, like most government agencies. It says updated forecast because it's basically 10 months of actual and 2 months of forecast, so it's where we think the year is gonna end, but we don't have final numbers yet, but let's pretend it's gonna be hopefully pretty close to that. The next column is the budget that we sought approval for with the board, and what I'm gonna walk you through, that's for the next 12 months, so the next fiscal year. And then the last two columns are the variance between those two, both in dollars, so it's quick, easy math, and then the percentage increase or decrease. So you can see I circled on the page, cost of energy, we are budgeting a decrease of almost $24 million, about 7% down. There's ups and downs, as you can see, some positives, some negatives. The biggest driver you can see on this page that jumps out is capacity. That's the price of resource adequacy. That's a product that we have to procure. It's a compliance requirement. And you can see that that is expected to decrease by about $53 million. And that's entirely due to, or largely due to, just the decrease in the price of that product. You can see I put on there, it went from about $33 on average last year to $12 we're forecasting next year. So that's by far and away the biggest driver of the cost decrease that you see there. We're also seeing slightly lower, slightly lower in a dollar, but big percentage decrease in REC and GHG free prices. This is the product we have to procure to meet our RPS requirements. You can see there the cost going down as well. That's largely due to lower prices. So again, the markets go down, we benefit from that. We also received the nuclear allocation, which I believe was presented to this committee 6 months or so ago. That's a free allocation for us, so we benefited from that. And then the PPAs that we've entered into over the last 2, 3, 4 years, they're now generating more and more electricity that it by itself is RPS eligible, so we don't have to go out and buy that attribute. So that's also a decrease. There are a couple increases on this page. The first one is energy. That's just the overall, that's sort of the brown power, the cost of the electron. That is projected to go up. That's largely due to load growth. We're forecasting, I think it's about 4% load growth. So that's what's driving that. That's just more electrons that we have to buy for our customers. And then the other big increase in here is contingency. We have assumed a contingency of $21 million. That number is based on a lot of detailed modeling, analysis, looking at our open positions. This is sort of a buffer in case markets go crazy. But the biggest driver is the weather. You know, we could see a huge heat wave come through and we have to go out and procure a lot more power. And as we probably all know, during those heat waves, that's when the prices rise as well. So those are kind of things beyond our control. And so it's sort of good budget practice, as do a lot of our peers. They include an appropriate contingency. The board approved a contingency of about 10% about 2 years ago. We don't think we need that full 10% given the unknowns that we know at the known unknowns. So we're assuming it's about 7%. I think it's 6.7% of the cost there. So that's the $21 million. As a reference, last year we had in the budget a contingency of $29 million, which we never had to use. So good news. And hopefully we don't have to touch this again, but this is as a cushion in case, again, any of those extreme events, weather, prices, markets increase beyond what we forecasted.
Resource adequacy, is that like energy that you have to have available but don't necessarily use?
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. There is, and I'm not the expert in this. If Roy was here, he'd do a better job explaining it, but basically it's a compliance requirement to make sure on those peak high days, 1, 2, 3 days of the year, that there's enough power plants that are sitting idle to be able to run. And so someone's got to pay for those or else no one would build those because they never generate any electric power. So it's a compliance requirement.
Do you know why the cost is going down so much on that?
Roy would know better than I do, but a lot of it was, I think the 33 last year was abnormally. There was a spike in resource because a lot of the projects got delayed and there wasn't as much power that had come online, new power plants. Since then, I think a lot of the power plants, some of which we've contracted with, have now come online, and so there isn't that scarcity value.
More supply.
Yeah. Sorry, that is my question. Thank you, John.
There was a 29 million allocation for contingency in the last budget. Would that not be represented here in the table, or did I understand it?
This updated forecast was put together with sort of 10 months of actual and 2 months of forecast. So we have not used any contingency. Technically, there were 2 months left of potential contingency, but given where we are now, we know we haven't had any of those heat waves, and so we don't need it. So in the budget that was approved by the board last year, it had $29 million. We never had to use it, so the punchline is we came in significantly under budget last year. Partly, we never used a contingency, and to be honest, the team just did such a great job that costs were so much lower than we had budgeted.
A couple questions. Is there a predetermined plan for what happens for the unused contingency? Does it just go into reserve?
It's not so much reserve, this is the cost that the board is allocating us to spend. And so if we don't spend it, it doesn't get spent. If there's no reserve, it just drops to the bottom line. We are more profitable or more
It's
positive.
not predetermined if we don't use the agency, it's pre-assigned to programs or to cost.
No,
Okay.
Not,
And then two more quick ones. Does the
I
forecast?
will say, sorry, one thing. While it's not reallocated in the current year, if we end up the year, as we did last year with a cushion that we never spent, then that money is put into the sort of machine for the next year to determine what rate should be, what should our programs be. So it's cash that we didn't have to spend that then we can allocate, but we try not to allocate it out in the middle of the year because
It's
the
really
heat event
contingency.
could happen,
Right.
you know.
Okay, for the load growth that you mentioned, is that in part due to increased electrification? Is it planned for the versus just population or usage? Is there a piece that is known at this point?
Yes and yes, there's some just expected increased usage due to, not so much, I don't think there's that much more housing developments here, but just economic growth, more commercial. We don't have a ton of industrial in the area, but more commercial. There is some electrification in there, but that's offset a little bit by solar, people putting solar on their roofs. So there's this guy Jackson who works with, or he's since gone, but there's a whole team, a person dedicated in Roy's group who does just the load management. Obviously, that's a huge input on how much power they procure or they plan to procure. So some of it's driven by weather. And so I wouldn't say it's a crapshoot, but it's a big guess, but it's mostly just more usage by economic growth and some, I think, house expansion. I think you might know this, Kirsten. I think a couple of years ago, we were 310 thousand accounts. Now we're like 313,000 accounts. So there's not huge unit growth, but a little bit.
Yeah, Los Banos is always growing.
You'll have, Los Banos is the one community I think is growing with new housing developments. I just don't think there's many new units being developed in the peninsula. We are, a big topic that's come up, you've probably heard, is data centers. And so that is driving load growth throughout the whole country. And in somewhat North Carolina, California, although it's expensive here, so not as much as say, Virginia or some parts of the country. Specifically in our service territory, we're not seeing a lot of data centers. You never know. But we don't expect any. So that's not driving the 4%. If there was probably data centers, it'd probably be more like 8, 9, 10% load growth.
Are you able to share that? I'm sure you do, with the programs team and the marketing team, because the main resistance we get to electrification is you won't be able to handle this. It's gonna go out of control. Everyone's going EVs, everyone's electrify, your grid's gonna blow up. So are you able to parlay the knowledge of the cost part to those teams to help them rebut that argument?
Sure. I mean, I haven't heard that argument in our service territory as a deterrent to electrification. I know that's somewhat of a hot topic maybe across the country, that all the load growth mainly due to data centers, but I haven't heard that as a reason in our service territory. But our programs team, I think, is well aware of, we just don't have huge load growth in our service territory, for good or for bad.
Yeah. Hear it out in the community, Nick, and so I think that's a good talking point for the community relations and marketing team to keep it going. Because
I know, I will say, the last few years, we've overestimated load growth a little bit. I think we have a little, maybe what's the metaphor, our eyes are bigger than our stomach on EV adoption, home electrification, and it's just been slow to uptake. So I know this past year, we assumed something like 5% load growth in those numbers, and we ended up coming in, I think, like closer to 2. It also depends on heat events. I think it was a pretty mild year last year, so that's a big driver.
But you get my point, we encounter all the time in the community, we're like, we don't wanna do this because we're gonna break the grid.
Okay,
If you
yeah,
have
we
data to
can,
counter that,
we should share that with Raphael.
And then, other people have hands up, I'll go ahead.
Sure.
Thank you.
So any other this is by far and away our biggest cost, like all the numbers after this page are gonna look small. Not that we don't focus on them, but this is, like I said, 90% of our cost profile is cost of energy. It's what we do, largely what we do. This and programs are our two largest costs, and I'm gonna go into programs on the next page, but I just wanna make sure before I move off this page, any other questions? It's a good story here. Costs going down is always good. Hopefully they go down even more, we'll see.
I think we had talked in one of our meetings about if we had, more, let's say, more solar, more battery backup, we need less of, buying peak power. So is that, as we change to increase our solar and battery backup capacity, is that being?
Definitely. I mean, that's a lot of the reason we're entering into these large battery PPAs to shave off those peak demands, so we're not purchasing power at the wrong
That's
time.
reflected in.
Yeah, that's in these numbers. Not, I'm sure we can be doing more, but batteries they're expensive, there's cost to those too, so.
And Jason has heard your comment about, people objecting. It has nothing to do, Peninsula Clean Energy, it's PG&E, because they say if you have to add more service. And PG&E takes now, I hear, a year to 18 months to get an upgraded service, which makes non-starters in projects.
Okay, the next category of costs are programs, which I'm guessing everyone in this room is very familiar with. This is our second largest cost category. Here, a little bit of a different story. Again, the same layout, updated forecast, budget, variance. You can see here, we are forecasting an increase in cost, which while the cost going up, maybe in my world is not always great. This is, I think, a good story because we want to be investing in our programs. You can see again, there are some positives and ups and downs. We've broken it down to the way Raphael thinks of his budget. We've got buildings, which is mostly home upgrades, incentives. You can see that's the largest by far and away increase, almost $7 million. That's largely due to just a ramp up of the program. We had sort of an initial startup phase this past year. I think, to be honest, we came in way under budget. We had, again, bigger eyes than our mouth, so to speak. And it was harder to get these programs up and running. We're expecting that to happen next year. Hopefully it does. We can spend that money. We're gonna spend a lot more money on marketing, which you'll see in the marketing budget, but to drive the home upgrade program. That's the largest by far and away increase.
That includes rebates?
Yep. Everything related to buildings is in there. EVs is kind of a steady state. That's mostly our EV charging program. It's an increase, but not a huge increase. DERs is an increase there. We are really ramping up our distributed energy resource program. The board approved a GERMS platform subscription cost. Did that come to this committee? I'm not sure. Okay, so you guys are aware of that. So that's in there, and we expect this number to actually increase even more in the out years, but it's sort of picking up in this next year. The big decrease on this page is the grants, and that's not surprising. The surplus fund committee, which for those of you who've been around for a little while, was recommended, I think it was $16 million of maybe 13 million, don't quote me on the number, but something in that range of member agency grants that were given out to all the member agencies. We've been doling that money out over the last few years. 2025 was a huge 7 million of, I think it's around 14. But that's sort of going down as the member agencies have requested and gotten their money. We're gonna see that go down. So it's just a factor of the program sort of winding off, so to speak. And so that's why you see the big decrease there. So in total, with the ups and downs, it's about a 24% increase in the program's expenses. There's a next page, which is our capital program. This isn't all that program spends on, and I won't bore you what's the difference between capital and expense. That's an accounting term, but these are sort of most of these are incentives, grants that we're giving out.
So the grants, they go to government entities, schools, right?
Yeah, I mean, Kirsten can probably even talk more about it than I can.
Well, my question is, will that surplus fund get refunded, or like, are those schools, for example, not gonna have as many opportunities for
They're not,
grants?
what they are is, so of our 24 member agencies we have,
22,
22, Burlingame, Petaluma.
Yeah.
They all submit a proposal, and the dollar amount that they're allocated is based on, I believe it's their load as percentage. So if it was $14 million and a member agency represents 10%, they get $1.4 million. They submit a proposal on what they're gonna spend that money for. It has to be related to our mission, it could be upgrading the street lights, it could be electrifying a police station, I mean, there's a whole, and so all of your member agencies that you're come from have requested that, and we will be giving that money out, the 14 million or so. That was a one-time grant because we were in a surplus funds process. It happened about 2 years ago. The board went through a pretty exhaustive process. It was a total of $68 million that was given out as part of the surplus funds, but 14 of it specifically was the grants. And so the board could decide to do such a program again, but it was sort of a one-time, come and get it, your money.
Right, and to add a little bit to that, there's the ongoing grant programs.
Oh, yeah, that's
like
different.
the government building electrification
Oh, that's
program.
different, okay.
That'll keep going, so there was like an extra big bump for one
Okay.
year of that,
Yeah,
but like that baseline, grant, those programs continue.
yeah. This was like a situation where we you didn't use our contingency and we had a lot of extra money and there was a lot of board discussion. What should we do with it? We gave a one-time rebate to Farah customers. This is all like 2 years ago, so it's somewhat old. We
You
gave
reviewed
the 14,
this.
what?
Extensive, the CAC.
Yeah, I know there was a lot of debate on how it should be doled out, but that's why it was sort of a bump that was given out and it'll slowly trickle off as we move to a board at time. So that's programs expense. Programs has two types of costs. You may not care if you're not an accounting person, but we also have what's called capital programs. The largest budget, so here you can see again a similar increase. So again, good news, we're investing in our various programs. The biggest increase and the biggest dollar amount here is the Gov PD program, which I'm guessing people in this room are familiar with. This is where we are putting solar panels on government municipal buildings in your various in our service territory. So think panels on a rec center or a office, a municipal government building or a police station or a library. And so we enter into PPAs. Again, you guys all probably know this, so I may be boring you, but we enter into PPAs with these agencies. We buy the panels, we put it on the buildings. It costs money up front, and then we get paid back, so to speak. We're not making a profit, but we get paid back kind of 20 years in the form of a contract. And so we rolled out Gov PV1, which was the last 2 years. That's the 11.9 million, and some of it was in 2024. The 20 million here for 2026 is Gov PV2, which is the second version of Gov PV. There's also a Gov PV3 that we're potentially launching, although unfortunately all of this may be impacted by the current administration and the various, updates to the tax benefits and ITCs and things like that. So, but that's why the big increase from 11.9 to 20 million is the Gov PV2 program. It's just bigger buildings, bigger programs. On-bill financing is a program that's been around, it's hard to say for a while since we're not that long on agency, but been around for a while. This is where we will give basically 0% loans to customers to electrify their homes or put panels on their roofs. So we give them a loan, they pay us back. So this is when it's the word capital, this is money that comes back to us, but we have to spend the upfront money. And those are sort of the big $2. Resi and ESS is storage, so storage and solar. So we are getting in the business of financing residential solar and storage. So if you're a customer, we will pay to put panels and a storage in your garage or wherever it goes, and you'll pay us back over 10 years or so. So programs is our second largest cost category, both expenses and capital, when you add them up together. And they're both increasing pretty significantly. Any questions? Okay. The next page is a catch-all of all the other operating expenses. These are the costs basically that we pay to keep the lights on, figuratively speak. So compensation is the largest dollar on here. This is obviously what it says. This is staff costs, staff benefits, social security tax, things like that. We are seeing an increase in there driven by just normal pay increases as well as slight headcount growth. We've really decreased the headcount growth the last few years. At one point we were adding 10, 15 people a year. We're now trailing that off. We think we've sort of built up the staff that we need to run the agency. So that's compensation. Data manager is the fee we pay to Calpine, who basically collects all of our data, the billing systems. That's not much of an increase, but it's a big dollar amount. Service fees, the fee we pay PG&E to do our billing. And so again, no increase, but $1.3 million. And the rest of the costs are the costs that we just have to pay to run the agency. So we do hire consultants, we do have legal costs. Most of that's for power resources, all the contracting we do for the PPAs. And we have a big communications and marketing program, which I'm sure you guys have all met Glenn before. We spend a lot of money to advertise our programs. We have our website. We have to send out required notices to all of our customers. And then general administrative sounds like a catch-all. It kind of it is. It includes things like rent for this building, includes software costs. It includes travel, meals. It includes professional development. We invest $5,000 for each of our employees. It includes subscriptions, things that you need to run the agency. So that's other operating expense. Some increases, dollars obviously pale in comparison to the cost of energy that I went through. So so that's all the costs. What we do, we are what's called a cost of service model, where the way we set our revenues, the way we set our rates is first we calculate how much cost does it take to run the agency, and then we try to collect enough money from our customers to cover those costs. Before I get into the revenue side, which is part of the budget, I did want to briefly update people on the PCIA, and I alluded to this at the beginning of the meeting, and hopefully people are somewhat familiar with the PCIA, but
You could give a little background.
sure.
What does it stand for?
Power charge indifferent adjustment. Basically what it is it's an exit fee that our customers, all CCA's customers, but in our situation, our customers have to pay to PG&E for exiting from PG&E and joining us. And the theory behind it, which I think is real, is that PG&E went out, and it's also not just PG&E, it's SoCal Edison, it's San Diego Gas and Electric, or SoCal San Diego Gas and Electric Company. They went out and entered into 20-year contracts. They built power plants expecting that they would have all these customers for the next 20 years. Sometimes they were forced to do it by the commission because they had RPS requirements. Thou shalt go buy power from this new solar plant in the desert because we want to develop that technology. PG&E went and entered into a 20-year contract, again, expecting that those customers would be with them for 20 years. Lo and behold, CCAs get developed, new legislation, they come around, and next thing you know, I think it's like 50% of the load has gone from all the IOUs, the PG&Es of the world, to the CCAs. And so now PG&E's left with too much power. They entered into these long-term contracts when they expected, they were forced to, for capacity reasons, and they had to build power plants, things like that. And so basically, the way the legislation, or it's not legislation, the CPUC rules work is those customers who are left at PG&E can be no worse off. And so they can't be left holding the expensive contracts or, holding contracts that are maybe out of the money. And so the way it works, I'm spending too much time on it and not necessarily the expert, is they'll do sort of a mark-to-market approach where they'll look at the value of those contracts that PG&E entered into and compare it to what's the current price, because basically they have too much power. And so what can they do? They can sell it in the market. But if they're gonna lose money on that, that's what the exit fee covers. And so it makes them whole. And so it's, I think, a legitimate approach. Unfortunately, there's a ton of debate on how you calculate the exit fee. Like, what is above market? I mean, there's it's too much detail, and it's kind of not even black and white. It's kind of a black box. And so that's been the issue. But the theory behind it, I think, is most people would understand. I think it makes sense. So
How often do they do that, Mark?
Every year.
Once a year?
every year in January, it gets reset. They look at how much it cost on those contracts that they entered into and what those contracts would be on the open market. And sometimes it can be reverse, like when prices go way up, those contracts are in the money. And so it can be a negative PCI, not rarely, because usually those contracts were entered into when the cost of solar was a lot higher than it is today.
CCAs and PC specifically fight that and make a counter argument every year to that initial
Yeah,
PG argument.
it's a huge debate. It's driven by the energy markets, so every year on January first, they look at what's the price of power, and it's not easy, because markets are very complicated. But there's also certain ways to calculate that mark to market, and basically, due to recent changes, we are expecting the PCIA, that exit fee, to increase significantly on January first. Couple reasons. One, first one on here, the sub bullet, RA and the capacity costs and the rec prices are a lot lower next year. And remember, I showed you the cost of energy. That's driving our cost down, so it's good for us, but that's impacting the PCIA. Capacity prices are a third of what they were before, so that market's changed, so that's driving up the PCIA. The CPUC also recently adjusted the methodology for calculating the PCIA. They had this big docket, they came up with a proposed decision. Of course, unfortunately, it went not our way, and the calculation is hurting us, so to speak, or our customers, and that's gonna further increase the PCIA. And then finally, PG&E and all the IOUs file this ERA filing every year, which I don't want to get in the weeds, but in there, they're throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall. And if those are adopted, which is a big if, that would further increase the PCIA. And so as a result, we are expecting, it's 6 months away, and so we won't know until January first. They really don't tell us until right before. We are expecting, though, the PCIA to go up from, it's currently about half a cent to maybe 3 cents. So that doesn't sound like a lot, but that's obviously a big increase. And I'll show you on the next page what that means for us. And as a result of that, we try to make our customers indifferent to that exit charge, because we want them to pay less than PG&E. So we basically have to somewhat refund them for that cost. So it's a complicated topic. And so I put together this schematic on the next page, which I've now walked several board members through, and I think they've found helpful, and hopefully you do as well. It's illustrative. The numbers are close to reality, but don't go quoting me on the exact sense, but you'll see the punchline. So in 2025, they work on a calendar year, PG&E, we're a fiscal year, but this is in calendar year 2025. Let's pretend that PG&E customers are paying a generation rate. This is not the full bill, but a generation rate of 16 cents per kilowatt hour. That's pretty close, but just say for argument's sake. We want to offer our customers a 10% discount, right? We want to advertise, we want to tell our customers they're doing better off than PG&E. So at the end of the day, we're hoping our customers only pay 14.4 cents a kilowatt hour. Our customers, unfortunately, have to pay that PCIA that I mentioned. Let's assume for argument's sake, it's 1 cent. It's a little less than 1 cent, but let's say it's currently about 1 cent that they have to pay. Doesn't come to us. This is money that goes back to PG&E. So as a result, we can only charge our customers 13.4 cents. Does that make sense? So we charge our customers 13.4 cents. Our customers pay to PG&E 1 cent. You add those two together, they're paying a total of 14.4 cents. That's a 10% discount. Everyone's happy. Now we go to next year. This is where the problem comes in. PG&E, we're expecting their cost to go down for a lot of the same reasons. Ours are going down. The cost of energy is going down. So we don't know for sure, but let's say that they can charge their customers 14 cents per kilowatt hour. Hopefully they can. That's good for their customers. We still assume we want to offer our customers a 10% discount. We don't have to, but our goal is to offer as big a discount. Let's say we're trying to target a 10% discount. Again, this is not complicated math. That would be 12.6 cents a kilowatt hour for our customers. Unfortunately now, the PCIA is going up to 3.5 cents. I don't know the exact number, but we think it's going to go something to that range. So as a result, you can probably guess where this is going. What I'm going to solve here is the green box. That means we can only charge our customers 9.1 cent. 9.1 that we charge plus the 3.5 cents they pay for the PCIA, that adds up to the 12.6. Unfortunately, that means our rates are going down by about 30% if we want to maintain that 10% discount. So because of the just lower rates that PG&E is charging, and because of the increase in the PCIA, those two factors add on top of each other to result in a very significant decrease in what we would charge our customers, assuming we want to maintain the 10% discount. We don't have to, but again, our goal is to offer a biggest discount as possible. 10% is just a good round number for this argument. So that tells you a little bit of the situation we're dealing that we expect to occur on January 1st, 2026. And that means that's good for our customers, if we can do that. But it also means our revenues are gonna go way down. So that's just a little background before I go into the revenue. So as I remember, I described that we are a cost of service rate, we follow what's called cost of service rate making. The first step is we have to determine how much costs does it take to run the agency. I just went through all those pages. Trust me, they add up to $392 million. The cost of energy, compensation, programs, et cetera. There's some offsetting factors, like we do get some revenue on programs. We do have some interest income we earn on our cash balance. So net, we need about $375 million of revenue to cover our costs, assuming ideally, we all know we want revenues to be greater than costs, or at least equal to costs. There are many different ways we could collect that $375 million. But if we were to maintain the 10% discount throughout the year, we should be able to collect about $375 million, which will be just enough to cover our costs. And that is how we came up with our recommendation to the board of maintain that discount throughout the year. Again, that assumes a big decrease in our rates. If PG&E rates go down and the PCI goes up, we're gonna decrease our rates on January. It'll probably be February 1st because there's like a 1-month lag. But on February 1st, we're assuming in this model, this assumption is that we will be able to decrease our rates to be able to offer that 10% discount for our customers. So that's the revenue. So that brings us to the budget. This is where it all comes together. Same layout. Left is the last year, the right is the budget that we're looking for. And this sort of puts it all together. You can see these are a lot of the same numbers that I just walked through. But you can see the revenues, the decrease of 16%. You can see the cost of energy and the operating expenses that I walked through. The net result of all that is that we should end the year with a slight positive. It's about 1% of revenue change in net position, which is kind of what we call our profitability. It's not technically profitability, but that's how in our industry change in net position, about 1% of revenue. So this is if it all works out as planned. It won't. Revenues will be off because there'll be a heat event, costs will be lower because the energy markets go crazy, but this is the budget that we sought for and got approval from our board 2 weeks ago. So that's the budget. The next 2 pages, I lay out the 5-year plan. Technically, we only need the board to approve 1-year budget, but as any good board would do, they want to know, well, what happens next? What's in the out years? Because you don't want to, just plan, you want to look further out. But before I go on to sort of the 5-year plan, any questions on just the next year budget? We kind of walked through each of these categories, but this is sort of how it looks together.
So that 377 million is that including that huge bump in the PCIA?
That is well, yes, it assumes the PCI going up. That revenue doesn't come to us. But the reason it's such a decrease is because we remember that 30% decrease.
Okay, so that's factored.
That's factored in, and that's gonna happen on February, so it's only half of this year. But that's why revenues are going down by 15%, which means our customers' costs are going down by 15%.
Is this gonna be a problem in the future years?
Yes,
Okay,
That's-
that's the next page.
that's the next page. This is, it's not a problem we can't manage through. We are in a fortunate financial position where we have a cushion to deal with it, but it is gonna cause maybe issue is not the right word, but challenge in the next year because of that.
Nick, a question I often get from members of the public is how are we able to offer a discount compared to PG&E for providing the same service? Like, why are we able to just give 10% cheaper?
That's a good question. I think it's a bunch of reasons. One is, we're a not-for-profit agency, so we don't have shareholders, we don't have to pay dividends, we don't have to show a profit.
And that's usually on the transmission and the distribution side, I think, but.
Some, also on the generation, they own power plants and they need to make a profit on that, not tons of power plants, but they own Diablo, they have a huge hydro facilities, they own some gas plants. So one, it's being a not-for-profit and not having to pay dividends. We don't have a lot of the infrastructure and hierarchy that maybe a PG&E has, high-priced executives, big fancy offices. bureaucracy, maybe we can be nimbler. There's some benefits to that. Some of it's timing on, but it's a good question. We'd like to think we're good at what we do, but I think PG&E has good people. They're buying energy, hopefully as well as they can and trying to offer their customers the best rate. So those are, I think, the main reasons.
What's your definition of high price executive?
CEOs who make $20 million a year, I don't know. That's high. We could debate whether it's worth it, probably not, but that's the going rate of a Fortune 100 CEO. We all know Sean doesn't make that. I'm just using CFOs. I can tell you my colleague at PG&E makes a lot more than I do.
Can I ask, has it been discussed whether to lower that discount from 10 to 5% to reduce that gap that we might be facing between the cost and the revenue coming in?
Yes, that's something, the 10% is what we're targeting, or 5%, or as big as we can. But there has been talk of, in the out years, we are assuming we're gonna have to reduce that gap 10% back down to 5%. But our goal is
Not proposing it for 20.
not for this year. We think we can maintain the 10%. When we come back on January to the board with the budget refresh, we will have to come to that conclusion and we'll make a recommendation to the board. We're hoping, hope is not a strategy, as they say, but our plan assumes being able to offer that 10% throughout the year. But unfortunately, in the out years, we're sort of reverting back to 5%. So we'll see.
Is the thought that keeping that discount is important to retain customers?
That's a great theoretical question. There's been a lot of debate on that, on how many customers would leave if you, because MCE, we've been told, has offered a premium at times, not always, but during peaks. That's a concern. I mean, we also want to offer our customers the best deal we can. We're not here to make extra money and pocket it, so to speak. So the other reason, I'm sorry, jump back to why we can offer cheaper is taxes. We don't pay taxes. We are a not-for-profit. PG&E, when they make money, pays taxes on those. So that's another reason. Sorry. But our assumption is this current year 10%. We'll hold on to that as long as we can. But we obviously need to maintain financial viability for the agency. So this is the current year. When we get into the 5-year, it gets a little more challenging. And there are a lot of numbers on this page, and obviously for those of you who've ever put together forecasts, anytime you go out more than 1 year, I wouldn't say it's a crystal ball, it's a guessing game, but there's a lot more uncertainty. And so we're doing our best to forecast what we think. Cost of energy is the biggest driver, but what the cost of energy will be out 2, 3, 4, 5 years, but who knows? And who knows what PG&E rates are 2, 3, 4, 5 years out. The cost, so the way this is built up is we go through all of the cost categories the same way I described with you. And then we have to calculate how much revenues do we need to collect to cover those costs so that we're making a slight, I hate to use the word profit, but we're covering our costs, which is that last change in net position there. You can see it ranges from $1 to $5 million. So a little bit of a cushion there. The year where there's a big challenge is fiscal year 27. And the reason is if we want to offer a 5% discount, which is that last number on the bottom, in fiscal year 27, we can only collect $301 million of revenues from our customers. Just because remember that graph I showed you? So that we're $105 million short, so to speak. We're fortunate in that we built up reserves. We're sitting on a lot of cash. We've had some good years. And we built up enough cash to cover that $105 million. And that's why we think we can offer that 5% discount, but that's 2 years out from now, but that is the way the budget is built. The last page, which kind of goes with the income statement, is cash. Cash is king, or cash is regal, as they say. This shows you the situation that we're in. We're sitting right now, 2025 is the year that just ended 10 days ago. North of $400 million of cash. This is due to just some great management of the business. Cost of energy has been a lot lower than we thought. The contingencies haven't been used. So we're very fortunate to be, the blue line on here is cash, just by the way. The green line is what's called days cash on hand, which is basically just a mathematical equation of cash relative to annual expenses. So it's used in the industry to be able to compare companies of different sizes. We have a target of 250 days cash on hand, but you can see we're sitting on north of $400 million of cash, which is great. But you can see that quickly changing over the next 2 years, not so much in fiscal year 26, a little bit decrease. But you can see $130 million of cash basically going out the door between now and 2027. And that's because we are basically facing that shortfall in 2027 that I just showed on the income statement, that 105. So we're basically using, fancy way of saying, we're using our cash to supplement rates so that we can hopefully offer our customers that 5% discount.
Two questions. It looks like in the out years, the revenues get back to sort of normal. Is that because the PCIA thing's sort of a one-time?
Yes, that's great. Yes, no,
And you're
that's-
not expecting another big jump
so
again?
correct. So I'm like anything, I'm trying to not gloss over the facts, but not get too into the weeds. The reason next year is so bad is because of sort of a one-time confluence of factors. And tell me if I'm going too down a rabbit hole on the PCIA, but when they set the PCIA, they do it in December. So it's December of last year, so 6 months ago. And what they do is they look at what they expect all the cost components of energy to be. You know, they do that mark to market, they do historical, and then they say for the next 12 months, what is it going to be? When they set the PCIA for the year that we're in, again, they use a calendar year. Basically, they set it off of December prices that just finished, which are at those really, if I showed you a graph of RA prices or rec prices, we're at the peak. And so as a result, they assume really high market prices, which resulted in a really low PCIA and too low. And so this past year, the PCIA is like 0.5 cent. And in reality, prices have come way down, as I sort of showed you. And the PCI should have been a lot higher. So we've been sort of, and so what they do is they get to the end of this year. So in December, they'll do the same calculation and they basically look back and say, how was forecast to actual? And then they true up. And so they'll say, oh, shoot, the PCIA was lower than it should have been. And so PG&E collected less revenue, less of an exit fee that they should have. We're going to true that up in the next year. Does that make sense? And they do that every year. There's always a true up. They make a net forecast. It just, there's these markets, I'm not an expert in the cost of energy, have been hugely volatile in the last year because of, I think, new projects coming online and administrations and who knows. And so the true up is going to be huge because they were off by so much. But that's just a one time, and then it kind of reverts, we think, to sort of a more normal PCIA of like 1 to 1.5 cents. That makes sense? It's kind of like a double whammy in 1 year. I hopefully explained it, but there's a lot of, sorry.
How many more years do we have to keep paying the PCIA?
That is a great question. Unfortunately, it never ends. So and this has been a point of consternation. First of all, I'll say that the contracts, ours is from the contracts that PG entered into, a lot of times were 20 years. So we were started in 2016, so we're about 10 years into that. So they start to come off, but
They didn't enter into all new contracts the year that.
that's a fair point. So some of them were but there were some that were, say, entered in 16, 15, 14, but that's not the whole story. So the PCIA does decrease significantly as we move out. But it's still significant today, but it does come down. The problem is, what?
There's no sunset.
The problem is, this is well before my time, the PG&E, the IOUs were able to lobby to include utility-owned generation. So they own the largest hydro fleet hydro plants in North America. And so those will never sunset. And so they paid $1 million and they say that cost is always going to be in there. There's apparently every year, the commission, a docket argument, as you were saying, should that be included? But they were able, when this was all set up, to include utility owned, and these plants last not forever, but 30 years or something. And so at least it comes way down, and there was a graph at the Cal CCA conference that showed it for all the CCAs coming down, and then it kind of just flatlines, at least as far as the graph. At some point it goes to zero, I guess, when the plants get decommissioned.
You can choose not to answer this either because you don't want to or you don't know, but are other CCAs going to be able to weather the storm as well as PCE? I mean, I want them all to succeed.
That's a great question. That's a great question, and I agree with both your statements. Is this? You could go one page. Sorry. We are in a fortunate position, sitting on $400 million of cash. A lot of it was because of when we were formed, which was, I wouldn't say luck of the draw, but there are a lot of CCAs who don't have this fortunate cash balance, and there is a concern that there will be challenges. I don't want to speak for other CCAs, but there's a lot of chatter, email, talk at conferences between myself and the peers who are facing the same cliff situation that we're dealing with. Now, I think the situation's a little worse in Northern California, PG&E CCAs versus Southern California. So I don't want to speak for them as much, but the PG&E situation is pretty dire. And so I think a lot of our peers have a nice cash cushion, but not all of them. And I don't want to speak for them, but
Yeah.
it's a concern. It's what we lose sleep about. And, you know, I'm feeling fortunate that we can weather it. The other thing that we could do is we could increase rates. You know, obviously our goal is to offer as big a discount as possible for our customers, but we also want to stay in business. And so MCE, some of our peers have at times had rates that have been slightly higher than the incumbent utility, and they haven't seen mass exodus of customers. And so that's a decision we'll come to if we get there, and other CCAs will too as well. But obviously, if your discount is too high or for too long, then you risk customers departing.
I see, Jen, our legal counsel has her hand raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to be mindful. We have allocated 20 minutes to this particular agenda topic. So if we want to wrap up that, I think that would be really helpful.
Sure, I'm done. This is my last slide.
Sounds good. There's a lot of great conversation.
Can this issue come back to us at the end of the year to talk about just like preservation and resilience of CCAs in the face of these fees? And whether it warrants, you know, some planning before the next legislative session? That's not a new thing.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if it's something that.
It should definitely come up. I don't know if the end of it, the problem is, it'll take a little while, you know, PG&E won't set the PCI, it happens on January 1st, and so then we'll probably have to see how the CCAs respond, but yeah, I'm sure. it can come
No,
up.
yeah, I understand. I just mean like, could this group discuss the bigger picture of like trying to maintain CCAs due to the community benefits of CCAs and trying to support that?
So what was, I'm gonna take a note of that. What was your idea exactly?
I would love for our committee to discuss whether we can make a recommendation to the organization to pursue legislation to protect CCAs due to the community benefits in the face of these, like, I guess I would say volatile fees, oppressive fees,
Legislation regarding the PCIA?
the protection of the existence of CCAs in the face of volatile exit fee changes.
You want to do your last slide?
That's it. So this is my last slide.
So I kind of lost it there. So this in that 2027 is because the PG&E miscalculated something and then their PCIA goes up and we don't, and you guys are not expecting that in the following years, that that's gonna level off?
Yeah, so
But
I guess the way I describe it in a non-technical is the PCIA should have been higher the current year we're in. The current year we're in today, and so as a result, we are collecting more revenues than we should have otherwise. That's adding to our cash balance, and we're gonna have to turn around and give that back to PG&E next year. That's kind of non-technical, but basically they misforecasted it because markets were crazy, and then it gets trued up or it gets caught up in the next year. And then so the PCIA will go really high next year, and then we think it'll come back down to something in between. If that makes sense.
yeah, I mean, how are you sure is if they made a mistake? Last year, you know, I don't trust PG&E as far as the throw.
Yeah. I wouldn't say it was a mistake. They use market benchmark prices, which at the time were just really high. I mean, they maybe could have done it differently, so I'm not saying, but it wasn't like a calculation error. And then basically when we get to the next year, they look back and say, how was our forecast compared to actual?
Oh, okay,
Right.
because the energy prices.
The energy prices, yeah, it's all based on a mathematical equation on what is the value of the energy. And so they thought the value would be a lot higher that the PG&E retained, and it's a lot lower than it actually was.
Is there any public comment on this? Go ahead, please. Should I use it, please?
Yeah, please hit the button to turn the light green.
Think I got it.
Yeah.
Good evening, folks. Brian Schmidt with Menlo Spark. And I had a couple of questions, one of which I've had for a very long time. I realize this might be the perfect chance to ask this question. If we could go to slide 7 for a second. If you look at the top 2 figures there, I can't see that far away, so I'm
Sorry.
Look
There's a
up my-
screen back here.
Oh, maybe that'll help. There we go. Is that, yeah, okay. Wait a minute, I'm sorry, I want to look for where we had the grants. So I got the wrong number.
There. Page 8.
Yeah, that's it, thank you. I was thinking, look at those top 2 figures where we're basically subsidizing electrification. And then come up with a counterfactual that PCE is not a government agency, it's a for-profit institution. When it's subsidizing electrification, but it's a for-profit institution making money, making profit off of electrification, it gets some of that money back. And that would be the profit is what it would get back from its electrification subsidy. Don't do that, not a for-profit institution. However, my working assumption has been it's still better for PCE to have a gradual increase in usage of its product. And the question in my mind has always been, how much? Because if you could have some way to define that, then you could say those first 2 things, buildings and EV, basically anything that increases the use of electricity that PCE subsidizes through its programs has a financial return to PCE. And therefore is a reason to do those things above and beyond just doing the common good. So if there's some way to quantify that and figure that out, I know it's also a return over time. And I know you don't always make money off of increased demand for your product, but the general concept would apply. Then I had a really minor thing, I guess it's slide 10 maybe. Yeah, that slide. Just minor, I just could not help this. Looking at the legal costs, change of $200,000. That looks to me like that's either a 20% change off of 2025 or an 18% change off of 2026. So I couldn't quite understand that one. And then slide 15.
Sorry, do you want me to answer it? You're talking about the legal going from 1 to 1.2.
Yeah,
Is that's a 24% increase between those 2 numbers.
so going up 20% of 1 million is $200,000.
Right, there's decimals, I mean, it goes out further decimals, but
All right, maybe I'm being clueless. I will go back and think about some.
You're saying it's 1.24, not 1.2.
I
That's
don't
the
know.
only way
It
those
could be-
numbers could work out.
Then it could be 0.96, you know,
The disparity is enough.
I just put it in millions, but I could get the exact numbers, the math.
Yeah, I was wondering if rounding made the solution. So maybe that's the
These
case.
numbers go out many, you know, are actual numbers, they go out all the decimals, but you're showing
Okay.
in the millions.
Then the last one question was slide 15. With the cash on hand, which I assume was the end of year cash on hand.
Correct.
I thought from, maybe I'm remembering this incorrectly, but both 2025 and 2026 had a surplus at the end. So I didn't understand why that cash on hand at the end of the year went down in both those cases. And I'll just say that again as a picky little question. My main question is about the electrification that can help this committee that does a lot of work on electrification. Understand if there's a fiscal benefit to PCE for doing electrification. Thank you.
I can quickly answer. It's a great question of why, if we had a positive change in net position in 26, why is cash going down? The reason is the capital programs. Capital program, remember I said programs, that page had about $30 million. Those don't show up on the income statement, but they're cash going out the door.
Thank you. I want to move on and be sensitive to everybody's time here. I'll just say, like I always do when this comes up, the biggest threat to the whole idea is the PCIA. It has been since before it began. It changes the biggest swing, no matter what you budget or forecast. You're at the whims and mercy of that process, and it sucks. And that's my official response to that. Okay, moving on to the reviewing, recommendation on Peninsula Clean Energy Banking Services. I'm going to, go ahead.
I was just saying, you can hold on to that.
I was gonna deliver this, but she said.
Oh, you can keep it. We're gonna have questions for you. This is, I'm gonna do this very informally and ask for John help, which I should have said beforehand. We had a presentation last month. I hope you've heard about that, saw that from Mr. McKenna. It was fantastic. And the hope for this month is that maybe we have a discussion and maybe formulate some recommendations for the board based on our education, both at the last meeting and since then. And that's where we're at. I want to open it up for discussion. I have no lead proposal. Do you have something you wanted to?
No, this is just a follow-up item, because at the end of the discussion last month, you wanted the opportunity to make a recommendation, and so this is your opportunity to make a recommendation, should you wish to do so, and it can help answer
No,
questions.
I'm happy to start out with, I listened to the presentation a month ago, and I'm happy to start out or wait for comments or however you guys want me to handle it.
Okay, well, I think Kathleen, do you want to say something?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought we heard last month that the board or the staff are already looking into this, and so I guess I would think before we start
Yeah.
formulating a recommendation, let's find out kind of what's the status of that, so.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, as you mentioned before, we inherited JP Morgan. We didn't choose them. We chose First Republic before my time for, I'm sure, reasons at the time, local bank, customer service, whatever knows. But First Republic went out of business. I guess we could say we're fortunate that JP Morgan swooped in and acquired them. But we are left with JP Morgan. That being said, we don't like our hands being forced. It wasn't who we chose. And so we have committed to do an RFP to scour the world, to invite all willing parties to bid on our business by the end of this year. It's what we told the board we would do. In the RFP, we will consider a variety of factors, one of which most surely will be their support, alignment with our values, one of which is sustainability, other things like diversity and inclusion, as well as some other maybe mundane factors of like capitalization of the bank and technical skills and relationships. But one of many factors will be sustainability, specific, I haven't drafted it yet, but it'll be something like, what do you do to support the fossil fuel industry or vice versa? What do you do to support the renewable industry? And we will hear, and any bank can participate. We will have some requirements, it's got to be a bank that meets certain capitalization requirements and technical capabilities that meets our needs, which I can talk about in a second, but we will do that by the end of the year. And again, sustainability will be one of many, not many, but one of several factors that we will consider.
Do you know if credit unions are being considered?
And we haven't launched any, I guess we'll post the RFP on our website, so anyone can be considered. So the answer is yes. I don't know how many requests we'll get, at some point, we're a team of 2. And so we'll have to limit how many, there'll probably be minimal requirements and things like that, but yeah, anyone can participate. Like all our RFPs, we'll post it on our website, we'll scour the world, and we'll ask for willing parties. I will say, I just wanted to add on, we use JP Morgan for a variety of, any one of our First Republic, now JP Morgan, for a variety of reasons. One, and probably the smallest of which, is holding some of our cash. We have, as you saw in the presentation, we target about $15 million that we keep in our bank account, which is kind of working capital. I'm sure you all have cash accounts. You want to keep some amount so you don't overdraw checks. But it's not there to really earn a return. It's really just to make sure we can pay people, pay vendors. Our 415 million rest of our cash is invested with third parties with sustainability in mind. We use CAMP, which is the California Asset Management Program. We use 2 third-party vendors that have a sustainability criteria. So only what's 15 of 40 million? It's like 5% of our cash is invested. So I don't really view that as the primary purpose of JP Morgan. We want to put that cash somewhere that's not going to go away, even though it's only 5%, we don't want to lose it. So there is some capitalization requirements that we have to trust the bank's going to be there. And each account is only insured by $250,000, the FDIC. So it's gotta be let me use the word, a bank that we have trust in their financial soundness. But the real what we use JP Morgan for, to be honest, is paying vendors and people and receiving cash. I'm guessing you all have checking accounts or savings accounts. And, JP Morgan has an app, which I use. They have a portal that I go on every day. They have technological things that I use to pay vendors, to pay people, to reports that I produce, all that kind of stuff. Again, I'm sure you all have banks, and some have better portals, some have better apps. JP Morgan's got a bank down the street, which wasn't the reason we chose them, but I've had to go in there once, so that's nice. There are other reasons we choose the bank that allows us to operate, not so much the holding of the cash. So I just wanted to mention that a little bit, because I think the presentation was focusing on the cash that we're investing, that they turn around and then support fossil fuels, which I'm sure they do. But I don't want to make sure whoever we pick aligns with our values. And I'm sure JP Morgan will make their case that they do, but we can disagree. But whoever we choose, I also want to make sure that they can meet our needs, that they have an app, a portal that we can use, that they have good cybersecurity capabilities. Just to use example, we're about to issue a letter of credit to PG&E. And JP Morgan, there are some benefits of having a big well-capitalized bank versus maybe a credit union. We are talking to all banks about potentially financing GovPB3. Remember those numbers? They get even larger, and we want to maybe use third-party financing, bank financing, and so we may want to use a bank that does all that. So ideally, I'd love to find a bank, and it may not, probably not JP Morgan, but I do want someone who can provide the full suite of services that we need as a $500 million company with a lot of money going in and out with all the security and such. So just wanted to say that, but we will launch an RFP. It's on my to-do list. I told the board by the end of the year. I don't know if that means I'll be done or launched. It's not exact math, but it will be done. Like I said, we didn't choose JP Morgan, but we have now, and we'll see what else is out there.
So a couple of things, I assume that we can get in the RFP that whatever, requirement is that the bank does not invest in fossil fuel, in other non-sustainable industries. And I believe there are banks out there that don't do that. There are not as many, but they are out there. And then the second thing to alleviate the concern about the FDIC limit, we have to keep 15 million. Theoretically, you can look at 60 accounts, right? 250 each.
You gotta have entities though, but yeah.
Is there a law that says a single entity or a single individual can open 60 accounts at a certain bank? I don't believe there's a law. That.
I think you have to have tax ID. I think for most companies of size, they have one bank account that they have to pay. We're paying any day, $5-10 million a day goes out the door sometimes for those cost of energy. So it'd be hard to dole it out from 50 different accounts.
Well, it's all digital. It's probably.
Maybe, I guess anything's
AI
possible. I
agents
guess
to do
there's
all this stuff,
some practicality to it.
But it's getting easier.
On the,
Oh, it's harder.
yeah, I guess that could be possible. On the RFP, I guess I would be a little wary of having a absolute statement. I think we can have it as a criteria, like all the other values we have, but start putting in requirements of, you have to have over 50% of your employees be of a, diverse or something like that. I think that those will all go into the mix, but I think we should consider that, and maybe we decide that it's so important that that's, weighted higher, but I don't know if I want to make that a absolute requirement. Like you said, most large banks, if we want to go with a large, the JP Morgans, Wells Fargo, Citibank, B of A, most banks will have financed some fossil fuels, some of varying degrees, some maybe are getting out of the business. And so I want to hear all those. I guess I don't want to make any prejudging on just an absolute statement.
Yeah, I really appreciate you just going through this exercise. The presentation wasn't meant to do anything other than have a conversation.
Yeah.
And finding a bank that aligns with PCE, maybe more so than JP Morgan might. And I think ultimately the goal is just to get these banks to stop financing the destruction of our planet. And so I was wondering can you like work with other CCAs to bring even more weight to the table in terms of having those conversations with these banks that are financing not only just the existing operations, but new fossil fuel infrastructure that we know we can't be putting our money into. I was just curious if that was one thing. And then the other thing is when you send out the RFP or when you offer the RFP, are you able to target some banks that you know are sort of more aligned with PCE and encourage them or at least notify them? Or how does that process work?
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess I liken it to when you're recruiting, you have an open position at your companies. Probably the more proactive, the better.
Yeah.
And so when I'm hiring someone, I'll reach out to my network, post it on my LinkedIn. We did an RFP for our accounting support, Maher. And we posted on our website, which is kind of bare minimum, but yeah, I reached out to the firms. First I talked to my peer CFOs, who does your accounting? And so, yeah, we will, you definitely can, there's not a prohibition of it. So we will, if you have any suggestions, we will proactively reach out to them. We'll post on our website. We'll probably put a link on LinkedIn on the PCE. So it's hopefully not hard to find, but like if you want to get the best candidates, it's better to be proactive.
Yeah, we listed a few: Beneficial State Bank and Climate First Bank and Amalgamated. They all seem to be more aligned with PCE's mission. So, but yeah, be happy to do further research on that if you would find it helpful.
I would welcome any research. I would also probably, to be candid, the easiest is just if you know people or point them, say, apply. I mean, I did that with the accounting. I reached out to them, gave them a little extra love, so to speak, and said, I really encourage you to submit a proposal. Responding to these RFPs is a lot of work. And so you find that probably not every bank's gonna want to do it or find that it meets the needs or they have the capabilities. Like I said, we have more than just a place to park our cash. We need app, we need capital, we need technology, we need security. And so not everyone can do everything.
And could you bring this to Cal CCA as something to consider? To bring more force to the issue?
Well, and they might also have recommendations as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not on the board of Cal CCA. And several banks were sponsors at the recent Cal CCA conference that were the Goldmans of the world. So I'm sure they're aware of it, and I don't want to speak for Cal CCA. There's also, I'm sure there's more all of us could be doing.
So I'm just noting that this is an action item on our agenda, and I would love for this group to make a recommendation, but not in a heavy-handed way, because we see that action's being taken by PCE with this RFP it's planned to go out by the end of the year or be written and go out.
Definitely go out. I don't know if you've done, I haven't gotten that far, but there's no.
Three things that I wanna float for a possible recommendation from this group, and John, I'd love for you to take the lead, but I just wanted to put this on the table and try to move us forward, again, not in a heavy-handed way, but just, thing one is that it'd be wonderful for someone from this committee to be, part of the screening and the interviewing group on this RFP. I know that we played that role before, to have a seat at the table, evaluating the RFP responses, and not just the responses, but the criteria to evaluate the proposals that come in. Thing one. Thing two is to give a higher weight priority to sustainable investing when screening the proposals that come in. And I know that there are different criteria within an RFP that get different weighting factors. I don't want to try to have our group prescribe the specific weighting factor, but just to say that this would be a high priority item as sustainable investing. And I don't know if, John, you have a ready definition for sustainable investing. Maybe we could try to create a concise definition, like not investing in fossil fuels. And then the third thing is that PCE at times has written in a clause into RFPs that allow other CCAs to piggyback in and join. And I think that's a wonderful thing. And so I would recommend that here, not just writing in the legal clause that allows the piggybacking, but actively seeking that partnership so that there's a little more leverage negotiating with the entities that propose.
No, I think those are all great ideas.
Could I
Oh, go ahead, Ruby. Then I've written something down, but I want to hear what Ruby has to say.
Diane, just on that, you know, we should probably review the actual RFP suggestions too, is that sets, you know, the instruction and game plan for the review of the consultant. So it's very, very important that we do have to say.
Our role in the past has been to have one person selected from the CAC to be on that committee that might give feedback on the structure of the RFP, on the criteria for selection, and then sit in on the interviews with
Oh,
the
so be one
proposers.
person who goes on through.
Yes. Yes, but I don't think that we have the ability to take a draft RFP to this group and start helping to write it. That might be overstepping a little bit.
Oh, no, I just wanted making sure that we had, you know, somebody on it. However, we did it in the past, you have to start at the RFP
Right,
process.
I think the idea is to request that. Yeah.
Anybody have anything else? I'm gonna read draft language here. Go ahead, Steve.
I was just curious, what does that do to PCE going forward as far as like credit rating or anything, switching banks? The large sums of money, things like that. Would that be looked at negatively?
No, I would, assuming it's a reputable bank, like the rating agencies or any third party is gonna make sure whoever we're working with are reputable firms, so as long as it's, again, they'll probably be, again, I haven't drafted the RFP yet. A couple draft examples from previous CCAs that we'll probably start with, but there'll probably be some minimal capital requirements, minimal ratings. And as soon as they satisfy those requirements, no impact.
Do you know where other CCAs are doing their banking?
I do.
And anybody else have any different?
Most of our peers bank at a bank called River City Bank. Who is a smaller bank, but has gotten a great toehold, a niche covering CCAs. They've called me, they will definitely be included in the, you know, I've told them. They will definitely be, and I would assume a likely potential candidate. I don't believe they finance the, you know, any fossil fuels. It's a smaller bank. And they know the CCA industry, and I know the person and she seems lovely, and that's all I know, but most, I'd say, of my peers, I don't know, I don't have the exact benchmarking data, but they've probably got 75% market share. River City Bank. I don't know why we didn't choose them way back when. We went First Republic. It probably has something to do with local. First Republic was a local bank.
Cookies.
What?
First Republic delivers cookies.
Yeah, they could have got some nice cookies, some umbrellas, umbrellas. I don't know. I wasn't here.
Where is River City Bank?
I don't know.
Sacramento, I think. I could be wrong.
Sacramento River.
Could be, yeah. I don't know.
All right, I have a draft piece of language here to discuss. Don't make motions or anything. Vanessa, I just sent it to you. Can I read it? I included what I wrote and then what Diane wrote, and we can do whatever we want with this, but this is what I would recommend we at least start to examine as a recommendation if we agree. I can start reading it.
Yeah, I'm just
Okay.
reading it.
So I said, the Community Advisory Committee encourages Peninsula Clean Energy to find and engage a banking partner that furthers the mission of Peninsula Clean Energy in reducing greenhouse gas emissions, does not invest in fossil fuels, and meets the financial and operational needs of PCE as soon as possible. Specifically, we encourage you to seek to appoint a member of the CAC to the RFP review at a highway priority to the sustainability criteria, and include a clause in the RFP to allow other CCAs to piggyback on the project.
Can you say that last part again, specifically?
Specifically encourage, it's not written in there, but specifically seek to appoint a member of the CAC to the RFP review at a high weight priority to the sustainability criteria in selecting a bank, and include a clause in the RFP to allow other CCAs to piggyback on the project.
When you say the RFP review, are you talking about the review of the proposals that come in, or actually helping develop this?
I would welcome
I think
that
that,
distinction.
What we need, what's the correct phrase?
well, I just want to make sure that the point you had made and that.
The point
Remy
was, is it
emphasizing
to
about
come up with the
having
RFP or
somebody
come up with
involved.
the bank? It's the latter, right? Yeah, so that's, needs to be more specific.
I think it's both.
Yeah, I thought it was
I
both,
thought it was both.
It's all three phases.
that we wanted to have somebody from this committee be involved in the development of
RFP,
the
design and
RFP.
execution.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever
Okay.
the term is.
Okay.
What, I don't know what's within our. I don't know what's possible or appropriate.
I would ask Nick for guidance.
I mean, you can ask whatever you, I mean.
If we say design and execution.
You're allowed to weigh in on what you think.
Would it
is-
be offensive on either end of that?
I'll take that as a yes.
Can you suggest appropriate phrasing for that? Because I think you understand the gist of what we're trying to do.
Let me give us an example. Oh, he's not here. Kathleen, can you give an example of what you did when you were part of the RFP you helped out with?
I was reviewing the proposals that came in. I don't think I was involved. Somebody else was involved in, well, somebody else was involved
It
in,
might have been Robert.
somebody else was involved, I think Robert was involved in actually preparing an RFP. I was not
This is
involved in that stuff.
subject by.
In the past,
Previously,
I've been
different-
involved on both ends.
Go ahead.
And that was, I think, in the earlier days of PCE, so I'm not sure if what's possible.
I don't know either. I mean, I think this is weird because this is not necessary. I mean, it is public facing. It's not resident, it's weird. I don't know how to bootstrap it into the different criteria. I'm sure we could think of a way to do that, but I think the question would be, in the past, members of this committee have been involved when picking a third party to come in to do something that was in our purview to recommend. It wasn't decision-making, it was just sitting there and helping.
I have more generic language to
Go
propose
ahead.
so that we don't have to figure out these fine details today.
Please.
It could be just to allow a member of the CAC to participate in the RFP process. And then Nick, you could give guidance on. what
Staff and
does that
board
look
can define
like?
it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, I guess you could say RFP process and selection of the.
Well,
That would be the whole thing.
but I think making it more generic might be more palatable.
yeah, I mean, my recommendation was just for someone to have a seat at the table. I'm not sure what all is on the table.
And again, I remind everybody, we're just making recommendations. They can take with this whatever they want and ignore it or take pieces of it.
I think process is ambiguous enough to be very accepting.
Does the rest of that line up? The first part I took just from the conversation at the beginning and last month. And then the second part was what Diane was specifically suggesting.
No, I think everything's great. I might wordsmith a little bit, but I don't think it's important enough to spend time on. I think it's great.
I might suggest that a sentence should begin with and.
Yes.
And maybe just start that with specifically we recommend CP.
Okay.
Something like that.
I think that's good. Thank you, Vanessa.
Specifically.
CAC, or
Recommend.
no, excuse me, CC recommends that.
Request that a member of the CAC be appointed.
Plus, it's good.
Can I ask a question on the third part there? The piggybacking, I guess I wanna, like to understand how in practicality you're envisioning that. I mean, I'm not aware of any other CCA who's doing a RFP. They're mostly with River City Bank. It's a lot of, we can invite anyone, I just maybe, that doesn't hurt adding it, but I just having a hard time.
It's a generic one paragraph clause that goes into your contracts and it's already written into other RFPs. And that just keeps the door open.
Door open for someone,
case-
another CCA
Yeah.
says, we wanna
But
select a
they
new
don't
bank
have to
too.
recreate the whole RFP
Yeah.
process.
Okay.
They can benefit from the research that we pay for on this front.
It's
Oh, it sounds like they might be happy and maybe we want to piggyback on there.
That's true, but do we know for sure that every other CCA is with that River City?
No, I know there's a few other like PNC, one bank and a few other banks here and there. And I don't know if they're happy. I just did, as part of this process, tried to reach out and say who other one banks with. It's mostly River City.
Mhm.
I'm all for, it's a collegial industry and we share best practices, so I'm just trying to think in practicality how this would work, but I guess you can easily include a paragraph, I'm not against it, I just don't know anything's gonna come of
You
it.
don't know either, so.
I think there's some pretty standard, like, public sector language that public agencies can use to allow other public agencies to basically use the same procurement process without doing it their own. So Jen could probably.
Sure, okay. Not against it.
Get that up to them. All right, anybody have any other thoughts on this?
Just wordsmithing.
Go ahead.
Well,
I couldn't see
we don't
your-
have real sentences here. Specifically, the CAC requests that the board appoint a member or a member of the CAC be appointed to participate in the RFP process. Or staff appoint whoever, whatever.
Were you, I think Kathleen said, what, CC requests that a member of the CAC be appointed,
Yeah,
then you can figure out who does the appointing.
yeah. CAC be appointed to participate in the RFP process. And that
You can change highway to
highway
prioritize,
be prioritized, yeah.
prioritize the sustainability criteria. Sorry, I should have edited my own words there.
It's okay.
Okay,
Well, it's not a member of the CAC gonna prioritize it. It's request a member of the CAC be appointed to participate in the RFP process.
The RFP prioritize,
The
right?
prior, yeah, thank you. The RFP prioritize or give high weight to sustainability criteria. Ability criteria and include. I pause, yeah. And then in the
Get rid of
first paragraph there, can we take off the as soon as possible? It reads oddly right now. It's like we want them to meet the needs as soon as possible. That's not what we're saying. And I think, I mean, Nick's already on it, so we don't really need to be putting that in there.
just leave.
Just
Okay,
engagement.
all right, could I have a motion?
Is that something?
John, do you have something?
Most of Is there?
I'll make a
anybody who's-
motion.
John makes a motion for this resolution. Before we can, Jen, is there anything you want to comment on before we do a second here?
Do we take public comment?
Oh, yes, public comment, excuse, well, yeah, is there any public comment before? I accept your motion, but I put it in pause, hiatus here. Is there any public comment on this?
We're pretty good at that.
Any online?
No.
Okay, thank you. Jen, is there anything you want us to do before we move in second here?
No, I think we're set.
Okay, great. Could I get a second, please?
Second.
Got a quick question. When you say in that first sentence, participate in the RFP process, and this is kind of a Jen question, would that also include the selection of the bank, Jen? When we say the word RFP process.
I think we can use the word RFP process. I mean, ultimately, the selection is going to be up to staff, but there's going to be, a process where they're scoring, et cetera. It's a pretty defined process. So as that's developed, if the recommendation is accepted, then a CAC member could be involved in that.
Thank you.
All right, I still have a motion. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Randy. Okay, we take a roll call vote.
Mhm.
Please.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes.
Awesome. I want to thank both Nick and John, especially both of you for this.
Is that especially Nick or especially John?
Especially the two of you for the work you did on this.
Just
The work-
kidding.
But I want to acknowledge that you already had done quite a bit of work on this, obviously, and quite a bit of research on this in advance, which is fantastic. And I didn't know that because we didn't talk about this yet. And I want to thank you for all of that and your continued work on this. And John for bringing it up to us because he's been bringing this, he's asked politely for about 8 months for us to talk about this and for internally. And I want to thank you for doing that both last month and this month. And thank you very much. Okay. Moving on to the reviewing the status.
I'm gonna sneak out.
Thank you very much. Review the status of the Community Advisory Committee recommendations, including the general tracker and its usefulness, and identify specific recommendations for revision. I apologize for the wordiness of that. That's on me, but the point of this is twofold. One is to sort of just, we're not doing any action on this, is to discuss if this is a good process with the tracker, and then also to go into the tracker and see if there's something we want to future agendize or not, or maybe based on where we're at. So could I ask Vanessa or Kirsty, could you present the tracker again? Or I'm sorry, if you have a better way to do this, do it, but I just assume we look at the spreadsheet.
Oh, yeah, there it goes. That's bringing it up. Okay, so we went back to the staff members that were responsible for each of these items and asked if they had any updates to this. Not all of the items had updates, but we wrote in the updates where we have them. So I'm gonna present what we got, Vanessa.
Sure. So this tracker is posted on the website in case you all would like to review it more closely. I think we can, I'll go through them quickly, but maybe highlight the ones where there has been action or movement since the last time we revisited them. And then, of course, feel free to stop us if you have any questions or follow up, we can communicate that back to staff. And so the first recommendation on our list, starting from last year, was around the income qualified home upgrade program, which has been adopted and implementation is in progress. You all had a specific recommendation on the emergency replacement program to ensure that when customers were receiving loaner units, that we would prioritize heat pump water heaters instead of use of gas where possible. And it's like staff said that that is a preference for this program. So the next recommendation was the electric vehicle managed charging program. You all were excited about this program and recommended that it continue. Staff came back and mentioned that sort of based on the results of their research, which you all heard, they are exploring sort of other ways to engage and help electric vehicle users shift their energy use. And so it looks like that's a part of our targeted outreach through our marketing efforts. And we're also exploring that through the distributed energy resources management platform, which you all heard about a few months ago.
And feel free to ask
So,
questions as
yeah.
we go around here, so.
Okay, the next one was on net energy metering and talking about the process for compensating solar customers. And we had tweaked how the process for giving them a cash out. And you all were excited about communicating with customers that generated a lot of excess solar, as they could be a good candidate for electrification. And so our team is working on some of that targeted communication and incorporating some of that language into the true-up process for them.
I have a question on that, is when you talk about that, is that NEM 2.0 or NEM 3?
This was, I believe, NEM 1 and NEM 2.
Oh, so this doesn't cover NEM 3, so,
I mean,
It should cover.
yeah, it probably should too.
okay, because the payouts is very different to NEM 1, 2, 3. So I'm just wondering, with all the language there, are we paying out in line with them, the NEM regulations and PGE? Or are we going above and beyond, especially the NEM 3?
We subsidize our solar customers. So when we buy their electricity, excess electricity that they're selling to the grid, we buy it basically at the Eco 100 rate. So that is 1 cent extra per kilowatt hour. Oh, no, that's Eco 100 is now 1.5. We subsidize it at 1 cent per kilowatt hour. So does that answer your question? And that it doesn't matter which NEM program.
Yeah, well, I mean, the rates are different
Mhm.
on NEM3 significantly
Mhm.
than
Yep,
that too.
whatever rate they're on, it's 1 cent per kilowatt hour actually.
And I think our recommendation was to target those big guys that are making all this excess to see if they can electrify, because they're the most obvious group to do that.
Yeah.
With that, so that's what we did.
Anything that's moving forward as of like mid last year is on NEM3.
Yeah.
Which discourages solar unless you have bad backup to put that power in that rate now, high rate. Because the rest of the time it's practically nothing.
That is true, and I think that doesn't really change your recommendation or the results of the recommendation. Because there's still a lot of grandfathered M1 and M2 systems
Oh,
out
yeah.
there that are making a lot of money.
Although there's rumors of that's changing.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Okay, the next recommendation was on our in-house customer call center, which is launched, it's live. You all suggested that staff explore including some additional hours to business hours in the evening and weekends. And looks like I think we're still not quite or I mean, probably still collecting data on customer utilization, and the staff update is that we will be doing some analysis to understand if adding those extra hours would be helpful.
I would say that the call center has been remarkably successful at retaining customers. It's doing a much better job at retaining our customers than the contracted call
Yeah.
center is. We had a week in, like, our Los Banos has our highest opt-out rate, 15% compared to 3% in San Mateo County. So we always watch those numbers really closely. We had a week with only one opt-out from Los Banos because our call center like saved all the rest of them. So they're doing a great job.
I think we should flag that as a future topic, because I've heard it at the board meetings, I think it was reported to us. Maybe, some of that was reported to us, we should revisit that based on their analysis, whatever that's ready.
Mhm.
Right, so let's flag that for future discussion, maybe, okay,
Okay,
please.
thank you. The next one was on greenhouse gas impacts of programs and policies, which you all discussed pretty recently. Staff came back and presented the analysis in May and have been sharing that with our local cities and jurisdictions. Okay, next one was on the self-generation incentive program, assistance program, which was basically helping our customers access state funds for solar and battery systems. And that program is in full force. We were able to submit 260 projects and are working on receiving approval to get these projects funded. And it looks like we, have at least 78 so far. So 78 income qualified customers are getting solar and battery.
You know, that seems great to me, is
Mhm.
staff happy with that, who came to us on this?
I think so.
Is that
I mean,
in line
it's
with-
the first year that we've done it, and based on the updates I read, it seems like they've had to deal with a lot of ups and downs with the process, but I think are happy that they were able to submit so many projects.
Yeah, I would say that the CPUC issue is a concerning issue. That the CPUC has not approved these because of having of some loss, just put it that way. And so that is an ongoing issue that we're
Is there a
working on.
way to address that?
Yes, so a number of CCAs were impacted by this and are looking at a legislative fix.
Sorry, what is this CPUC requirements then?
Yeah, I don't completely understand it either, but in order for the CPUC to approve CCA customers that were enrolled in this SCHIP program, it's a state program, we were just enrolling customers in. The CPUC first has to approve a distributed resources program from those CCAs, but the CPUC hasn't approved any of them. Of those, or they have. Yes, so the result is if those customers want to participate in the SCHIP program, they would have to opt out from PCE. in order to do so, and then lose their savings. So yes, it's it does not make any sense. And so, yes, we've been proactively working on finding a fix to that,
Okay, so. it
along with
sounds
some
like-
other CCAs that are kind of in the same situation.
It sounds like it's a bureaucratic.
Yeah. Yes, it's a slow-moving bureaucratic gap that we're trying to speed up, I believe, in the legislature. It's an evolving situation.
So these projects are signed out, but nothing to move forward. Till this.
Yeah, John?
Just clarification, 260 submitted, 78 approved. Are the balance of 182 still possibly to get approved, or are those off the table? It says waiting to hear back on the remainder, so more could get approved?
That's my interpretation.
Yeah, okay.
Also, some of those projects that were submitted. Yep, I think this is good.
Great, well, keep us moving. We also brought our schools programs to you all last year, which you all recommended that the board approve, and they did. And so, yeah, now that the school year is over, we're getting reporting back from those projects and seeing how they did. But yeah, thinking about ways to share those success and, promote it on our website and highlight the good works that our partners are doing.
Are you happy with that? That was your baby.
Yeah, I'm happy. Okay, next was the nuclear allocation, Diablo Canyon. I'll just, this is a complicated topic, so I'll just read the Sean's update to you all. Avoided costs from accepting nuclear allocation, estimated $6 to $8 million per year, will allow Peninsula Clean Energy to continue in its pursuit of 100% renewable energy by 2030 and its 24/7 goals despite the financial hits posed by new federal clean energy policy, most specifically changes to the investment tax credit and support for EV infrastructure. PCE and other CCAs since received feedback from the governor's office that a letter may be better received at a future time when Diablo Canyon is under consideration. Reasons previously stated, we do not plan to send a letter to the governor's office on this item.
Okay, so am I correct in understanding the first part of that response is that the funds were not directed toward renewable energy electrification programs because it's kind of needed to help with just maintaining the renewable electricity, as Nick was talking about in terms of dealing with this shifting budget? Is that basically what she's saying there?
I'm sorry, I missed the first part of your question.
The first part of her response, so our recommendation was the avoided costs go towards supporting renewable energy and electrification program, plug it into the programs. But it sounds like the response is saying, no, we're not doing that because we need that money to help us keep providing renewable energy. And as Nick was talking about, there's budget shifting around, decreased revenues and that sort of thing. And so in order to be able to continue with the basic renewable and electricity program, that's more where the avoided costs are going. Am I misreading this?
My understanding of our budgeting process, we don't necessarily earmark any specific revenue for any specific expenses. Like all the revenue goes into a bucket and then all the expenses come out of it. And so it seems like you're kind of talking about maybe earmark, and it's not really the process we go through.
Well, it seems like our recommendation was kind of
What's your
suggesting,
recommendation?
an
It's not
earmark.
Really the process that the staff.
right, so that's what I'm saying, that the response is no, we're not earmarking it for that. It's kind of going into the general, just helping us balance the budget here.
Exactly.
Okay, I just want to make sure I was understanding what you're saying there. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on to the strategic plan, I believe we'll be bringing this back to you all in September, but you all had some specific recommendations on the strategic plan. This is a long update, but essentially responding that your suggestions around elevating greenhouse gas reduction was heard by the committee. And they felt reflected in the new mission statement and the guiding principles. So I'll, in the interest of time, go through this a little bit
We haven't seen
faster.
that before, right? This is a new release.
Yes, this is a new update. So, yes, the strategic plan committee acknowledged the recommendations that you all provided. They also, sorry, I think I need to move this a little bit. Okay. Yeah, sorry, I don't know what happened to the rest of that update.
We'll be bringing it up in September.
But yeah, you'll hear this again, and I'll make sure that it could be when I was making the text bigger.
One of the big ones I wanted to make sure we get and we deal with next time. Okay.
Yes. Okay, and then just a few more. You all earlier this year heard about the energy efficiency program and provided some great feedback on that. And the application to the California Public Utilities Commission is ongoing and in development.
We know if there's a time, like a season or a year that's gonna be the next phase. Do we know that yet?
I think we would need to refer back to the presentation. I think Shelby presented a timeline. Yeah, so I would, I can look into that. But yeah, not too many updates for you all since it's still under development. Okay, and then you all had a number of recent recommendations on our solar and storage and distributed energy resources strategy. And yeah, similarly, they were presented to the board, approved, and development is ongoing.
For each of these, all the chairs, including me recently, we present this verbally and in writing to the board. And there has not been a recent comment. There hasn't been like a yes or no or questions, but just, they do get this from us. Usually it's because the staff comes to us usually before they're gonna go to the board. The recommendation is concurrent often with the staff's presentation to the board themselves, which leads to the approval or the non-approval of whatever the things are.
Yep, and that was the last recommendation. Any other questions or follow-up that you'd like us to make on your behalf?
Great.
We noted, yeah, some of your interest in the topics to bring back for the future.
Is there any public comment? Online?
Let's go back up to. I think it's down,
Which topic?
the one below schools.
The nuclear one?
Yeah, that was, so the Apple plan, is that an annual renewal or not? Yeah. I can't remember.
It was just for through 2030, I think.
Yeah.
Oh. Oh, so this is way out. So it's again. And the response to Kathleen's thing was the money was not earmarked. The 6 to 8 million was not earmarked for electrification renewable energy programs.
Could you say that a little louder?
That 6 to 8 million was not earmarked for renewable energy and electrification programs. Is that what I heard?
That's correct, because we don't really do any earmarking in our budget process. Like, we have revenues, we have expenses, we don't have any kind of earmarks across the way.
And that can't be changed.
You,
Because that's
You-
what it was, the recommendation.
it probably could be changed, it's just more complicated way of doing things. Happy to take that back, but again, we've just. Like,
We
we
can
have,
agendize the issue in the future if you're discussing. I
yeah,
just as a real quick time, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, I just wanted to thank Vanessa for doing these updates and
Yes.
sharing them, and it sounds like it's, sorry. I thought we were wrapping up, and it sounds like this is available on the website, and if you could just remind us like where on the website to find it, but mostly I wanted to say thank you.
And then my only comment on the second part, because I think Kathy addressed the first part, was I believe, and maybe it wasn't clear, we were requesting they do it in advance of the next decision, not immediately. So I do think that when it says that they're not doing it now, we didn't ask them to do it
Well,
now.
that's for the letter.
Correct, that's what I'm talking about,
Right,
that's what it
but
is.
I was talking about the first part, which is earmark.
Right,
Which, it actually would have been nice to have this before Nick's, because that, actually Nick's presentation is for.
and again, we could bring this up again, so we get to that part, if you wanna agendize it to bring it up, I think we can do that. The point of this was to remind ourselves, and then we
Right,
can
yeah,
do something.
and again.
Okay,
I think we ought to have a discussion now that we know what happened here.
okay, I think that's fair. Great, okay, the next thing is Kirsten on the community liaison update, and Vanessa and marketing update.
Okay, great. And first of all, I want to say thank you to everybody who came to the Woodland Creek EV ready charging ribbon cutting. It was a good event. I saw a number of you there. Thanks for coming out. And we had a number of folks come from other HOAs and apartment owners come out. And we're already kind of in our pipeline and interested in participating in the program. And we got 7 new signups of folks who weren't in the pipeline yet also. So that each of those represents a whole nother complex of condos or apartments. So so yeah, successful and thank you for any outreach you might have done to help get the word out.
It was fantastic. Like less than a quorum of us were there. It was fantastic.
And I think I found out going through that tour is you can actually put the 220 or the level 2 charging without increasing, having to get new PG&E service by using the smart, load share stuff. So that was really encouraging. The difference between level 1 and 2 is huge, Because level 2, you can actually charge the thing up and use it the same day, whereas the level 1, it has to be an overnight charge. To get enough usable mileage. So that's just fantastic use, to see that. And hopefully, the next projects, those 7 and the other ones, we'll be able to get level 2 charging. In the spots.
Yeah, it's also to the condos or the HOA or the apartment owners, they get a suite of recommendations and choices and choices of technologies, and they get to choose what they want to
It
do.
just gives them more option.
Absolutely. Gives them
Makes
more
the
options.
EVs more usable.
Yeah.
Charging the bench.
My only recommendation, and Kirsten took this before the
Yeah.
meeting, was a couple people that I've talked to had already started this process like a year or so ago. And it's totally different now, so I think we should reach back out and remind them that the whole philosophy has evolved. And that might be attractive to re-engage with the people that are already in the pipeline that maybe were hedging because they weren't.
Yeah, that's a
Into it.
The
good,
technology is different,
Right.
Can tell you
Yeah.
what the big takeaway from that thing.
that's a good recommendation. Reach out to folks who might have dropped out of the pipeline or slowed down in the pipeline and revisit.
Which is
circle back
amazing, we
with them.
talked about at the previous meeting that you only could do 110 level 1. And here we walked out and said, oh, no, you can move level 2 all day long.
Okay, great.
It's huge.
Okay, good. And Vanessa, do you want to mention the updates on the federal incentives?
Yeah, so due to recent federal legislation, clean energy incentives and tax credits are expiring. And so from our end, we're planning to do a marketing campaign to make sure that our customers can take advantage of these credits before they expire. We're particularly interested in the credits for electric vehicles and used electric vehicles, which will expire before, end of September. And so we'll be working on doing some messaging campaigns, developing some toolkits, and we'll share it out with you all if you would be willing to spread the news and help folks get money while they can.
Quick comment, I know I raised this at the last meeting too, time is of the essence. So the sooner the better, and I know there's, you wanna get the messaging right, but if it's possible to get some out right away. It would be better because people only have 6 months to take advantage of, it's a lot of money. So if we wait 2 months to perfect marketing language, a lot of people are gonna miss out.
Well, it's also have to be accurate, because I had it up in my thing, as I'm exactly looking at getting the second DB, and then. I noticed at one point I had 4,000 federal, and then when I looked at it, I think literally this morning or yesterday. The 4,000 completely disappeared, which is also, it's incorrect because it goes to September 30th. So, I had to do some back research in Google and say, oh, okay. It's September 30th, but nowhere on our website it says it. So we just key is that we're then getting the accurate information on that, on the PV stuff, the battery, all of that. Just, it doesn't have to be pretty, it has to be accurate, it has to be now, because it's July, we got 2.5 months, basically. I agree. And plus, there's probably gonna be like the pie issue with, PVs and used EVs, which is limited, and everybody's gonna try to get them. They might get cleaned out, the dealers, so just for it.
I'm quite close to this. Pretty well versed in the subject, so if there's any kind of input, I happily volunteer my time.
Thank you.
And in addition to that, the metaphor I use for Diane is do a save the date. And the wedding announcement can come next, but get it going now.
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that. We did start emailing all of our local jurisdictions to put out like a quick blurb in their city newsletters. So we're starting the,
You want us to share that?
save the
out too?
date and,
Send
okay,
us that one, we can send just to next door and all that kind of stuff.
okay, thank you.
Then, like with the EVs, because I think you have to buy them from a dealer for a lot of these incentives. To get it out to the dealers so they can go out and just try to scoop up as many EVs off the. Because if a private party can't do one, so try to scoop up the private party units and get them in dealerships. Sure. Because it's only a month and a half. Or
Okay.
2.5 months.
Thank you. I think
Thank you.
Kristen, did you have a request for?
I do. I was actually slacking your recommendation to the marketing team right now, so before I forget. Okay. Yes, I do have a request. One of the fun things in the budget that the board just approved is $250,000 for portable backup batteries. For potentially for residents who are not in a position to install a solar plus battery storage on their homes. Potentially renters, potentially condo owners, that sort of thing. We ran a program like that in 2020 that targeted renters and condo owners and mobile homeowners who specifically have medical devices. We haven't figured out what we're gonna do. I mean, this money was just approved, so we haven't designed the program yet. But we are in the discovery stage of asking our members of our community. We're gonna do some focus groups and so on. But I wanted to ask if there are any renters on the CAC who would like to have a little informal like Zoom discussion about this. Email me and let's have a little discussion. But I do kind of want to specifically speak with renters or condo owners or anybody who live in a mobile home because if you live in a single family home, it's so much easier to install a backup battery and we're probably looking at folks who aren't in that position. So we'll send out a little email reminder and.
You want to send nothing to community members too, or just us?
And then we'll do community members separately. So this is just CAC.
This is actually very important. I think you mentioned medical device, because that's the critical, life threatening.
Yep.
As far as for renters, and I know we had, I think, 3 blackouts from PG&E just this week. For weird unknown reasons and power goes out. Well, no idea.
Okay, yes.
So, and luckily I'm not on a medical device, but if I had, that'd be SOL.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you considered doing some sort of a like diesel generator buyback kind of thing. You know, because I'm thinking, what do we want to do? We want to get rid of all some diesel generators that are out there, and replace those with batteries. If there's some way to incentivize people, you know, swapping that out somehow.
That's interesting.
That could be a
Uh,
target audience, is people who already have those generators.
Yeah, that's
If
an
they have a
interesting
need,
idea.
you're right. Yeah.
There are some folks that we actually think are better served by a diesel generator.
Hmm.
My father, I grew up in the Santa Cruz Mountains, and my father had like 30 days of power outages, like a couple winters
Yeah.
ago. Not consecutively, but you know, it's just like, you know, and it was storming the whole time, so.
Right.
So solar and battery wouldn't have worked for him, like, we looked into it.
Okay.
So yeah, he has a diesel generator. The folks who like have that, like the same number of power outages. And have no neighbors nearby.
Right, Right, I see your point.
Yeah, those are a lot of people who have diesel generators. There are people in that rural situations, and it's maybe the best the best solution for them at the moment. Though there are some interesting hybrids around that. So maybe something to look forward look at in the future.
Yeah, I'm just kind of appalled with some of the diesel generators I see in my neighborhood. We are not in the mountains. So, you know, there are people who just, that's their first go-to thing. But I agree with you, the renters would be the priority. But if you got renters who are using diesel, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're right, in terms of like folks in like a more urban area, if they have like a 2-hour block out and they have all these sorts of neighbors, and they're firing up the diesel generator, how annoying is that?
Yeah.
So, yeah, the interesting idea, Kathy.
Just a thought.
Yeah,
Are these portal ones that you need the infrastructure needed so you can switch your whole thing over to, or just plug like your individual appliances into?
you can plug it in the wall and plug your appliance into it, and so so it's always charged up. And so like if you're using a CPAP in the middle of the night and the power goes out, your CPAP will keep working. You don't have to you don't even have to wait.
You can wire it into the main panel. Yeah, or something. So there's different ways to do it. And with a diesel generator, you also can run vegetable. And there's a certain spot, I think Pacific Guy, there was a spot that had, that you could fill up your Mercedes 240D with vegetable diesel, and the conversion device is very, very thin. So I assume that the regular generator could do that. But there are a lot of generators that think are also gas. If you take them to the gas station, put regular leaded into it.
I'm a little off topic here since we're talking about.
No, I mean,
batteries.
we're trying to reduce greenhouse gas.
Right, yeah.
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 Email the whole group, because I know it's one here, so you got it. You know the whole.
Yeah, we know the whole group, and invite renters on the CAC to a little conversation. Renters, condo owners, anybody who doesn't live in a single family. Okay, great. Did we have anything else on our list for that? Okay, that's our.
Comment online?
No.
Okay, thank you. Working group reports. Does anyone want to say anything? Well, let's go ahead, John.
Sure, building electrification working group met with Raphael. We talked about this Assembly Bill 306, which got pulled into the budget, became a trailer bill, AB 130. It passed basically the way the bill was written. There were a couple amendments made before it passed, even before it got pulled into the budget bill. Basically, moving the window of the 6-year moratorium on building codes from June 1st to October 1st. So there is an opportunity for cities that want to try to move really quickly to adopt some local amendments to building codes. If they can get it all done in time. There's a lot of uncertainty on exactly what has to happen and what the Building Standards Commission has to do and the CEC has to do in order for it to sort of comply with this new law. But there are a few cities that are giving it a go, Menlo Park being one of them. There was a study session this week. And there's also another amendment that sort of referenced if a city had something in their general plan about building decarbonization, or reductions of emissions that might allow cities to adopt amendments in the future during that 6-year moratorium, but there's a lot of uncertainty around that. Raphael let us know that RMI and Shoot Mahali and SVCE are doing a legal analysis, and the findings will be presented to the board in September. But ultimately, it will come down to a local jurisdictions council as to how they interpret it. But this will at least provide some guidance for cities to look to. And there are still other opportunities that cities can do going forward on commercial buildings, so stay tuned for that. He mentioned that Peninsula Clean Energy is still working through some issues with the home upgrade program and the administration of that. So stay tuned on how that all gets resolved. And then he mentioned that he'll be doing a presentation to the executive committee. I think their next meeting is the 14th on his project to develop a financing program for solar and electrification that he presented to us a month or two ago.
Quick question. Local government can still do air emission standards on appliances, correct?
It's like a zero NOx ordinance. Well, I looked at that. Campbell and Los Altos Hills are the two jurisdictions that have done that. And that language is in their building code. So I'm not sure. I'm not an attorney, but it seems to me that might not be a possible path forward, but I encourage people to look at that more closely.
Thank you.
Also, Charles not here, but from the marketing group, we were presented by Gwen and Kirsten the process by which the evaluation of changing the name of PCE will be undertaken. And we're gonna have more meetings on that in the coming months. It'll be presented in September. So by the time we're back, we'll be able to be involved in that a little bit. It's a fascinating process. They've put a lot of time, energy, and efforts into figuring this out. I will not tell you that I have a clue how this is gonna end up, but it is a very they're putting a lot into it, which I think whatever the result is, will be after lots of careful consideration, deliberation, and effort by a lot of people. And I encourage you to just keep an eye on that as we're off for this month. Staff will be working on it, even though the board and we will not be doing anything in August, so stay tuned. That was the entire meeting was just about that today.
And just to add, the firm that PCE hired to do that specific naming task is that one of the best, they showed other names and firms that work for it. PCE is in good hands with that firm, for sure.
Okay, any other working groups?
Yeah, as far as the transportation, as you know, the BBB just passed, so that happened after our meeting. So of course, we just talked about making sure all of the websites are updated with the new rebates, running EV charging.
All right.
That was the big beautiful bill for those who aren't on their acronyms.
There's other things BBB stands for, depending which side of politics, but we kind of know what it is. The budget. Thank you.
Any other working groups? Any public comment? Any online? All right, thank you. Next thing is future or upcoming topics for discussion.
Yes. So fun fact, when you said Kirsten, I was actually not referring to me.
Not you, other Kirsten.
Yes, the marketing team has another Kirsten on it. not Kirsten
Sorry.
Briggs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we got to meet her.
Oh, you did? Oh,
Yeah.
good. Good.
Oh, by the way, for transportation on the bike stuff, I think, there, it was like a 6-week limit from when you, sign up for it, but I think, there's gonna be some extension, that's what I heard. I haven't checked the website to see what's going on, that's probably happening on an individual basis. Is there apparently the shortest bikes too, that
Okay,
are in, about $1,000 range.
okay,
Really short. I don't know.
okay, good. All right, coming up on upcoming meetings, executive committee is going to be doing a deep dive on the federal impacts of the big budget bill. And we'll have an update on the name presentation, probably similar to what you just heard, that we're we're in process. And an update on the Resi Solar Program. Board of Directors is going, yes, the Board of Directors is also going to do a deep dive on the federal impacts of the budget bill.
Is this for July's meeting?
Yes,
Oh, that's a pretty package, right?
yeah,
Executive committee now.
that was executive committee.
Oh, that's exactly, oh.
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah. Okay, now the board, yes, deep dive in the impacts of the budget bill. Possibly, talk about the strategic plan, 5-year agency goals, though that may or may not happen then or may get pushed out. And there may be a power purchase agreement, like a power resources contract. Maybe a discussion on residential solar and storage. And yes, there may be a conversation on our legal agreements and our legal counsel. And yeah, that's what's coming up in July. And then in August, everyone is off, so no Brown Act meetings in August, including you all. So August is off, just a reminder. I think we all knew that. And then coming up in September. Executive committee, 5-year agency goals. Trying to see if there's anything here. In September, looks like a recommendation on strategic planning goals. Charlene would like to bring that to you all in September. And then I also requested the folks who are doing the impacts of the budget bill, if they would like to bring that to you all in September as well, if you're interested.
It'll be too late, but that's okay. It's not their fault.
Well, this is the impact.
It's already too late.
I know, I mean, it's all, it's right. It's-
Yep.
Which is good. Well, I
Yeah,
guess the question is, will the state between now and September backfill like the lost EV and EV credits, for instance? Because
Yeah.
Keep it going, right?
we'll know more. We'll know more about how the dust is
What
settled.
is the state's budget? Is the state budget passed already? And
That's a whole nother topic. But we're talking about our future topics right now.
No, I mean, that affects, you know,
Yeah,
so what's gonna be said in September.
yeah, that definitely will know more about the impacts and how the dust is settled by the time you get this presentation in September. So you will get the better version of this presentation because we'll just know more. Then what's the board doing in September?
Retreat.
Yeah, I think the retreat is gonna happen a little later for the board. I'm not sure when, but you're right, it's usually like October or November. Looks like there may be a DEI annual report and a closeout of the old strategic plan. Caltrain tariff amendments. We talked about how there's regenerative braking on the trains, and so, but there was no way to account for that in the tariffs. And naming discussion, that's the main things coming up.
That too. Anybody else have anything they want to add? We can always email in between.
Is there another agenda item, like where we make quick announcements, or is that, should I do that
Yes, there's
now?
a committee member reports.
Okay.
Actually, before we move on, is there anything else? Let me go back to the CAC in September.
I did want to acknowledge that we did reach out to Tom Cabot to do a
Yes.
presentation
Yes,
on
please.
100 amps electrification. He wasn't available for this meeting, but offered to present at a future meeting. So what that still is of interest? Okay.
Okay, good. So for September, I've got lined up for you the recommendation on strategic planning goals and the impact of the budget bill. Those are two pretty meaty items. Do you want to add another, or is that enough? Just because. Okay, I think that's good to start.
Is
Yeah,
it possible to set it up so that at least one of those could be an action item in case we wanted to take action, so that it doesn't get bogged down?
I've got recommendation on strategic planning goals as an action item. The other is just like an impacts of the budget bill, so I'm not sure what action you would take.
Oh, I have some actions in mind, but I can go through our chair.
Let me know. I can ask. I always try to make everything actions. It sometimes works and sometimes doesn't.
Okay, well, if you have ideas for actions, the thing is, we have to word
We have to make it
the,
specific.
we have to word the agenda item to have a recommend, when it's an action item, the agenda item has to be worded to give the public an idea of what your action might be. So it have to be like a recommendation on something or something.
Action to address the loss of federal funding.
Recommendations on how to address the loss of federal funding? Okay, all right,
Thank you.
yeah.
I recognize the late time, so.
Go ahead, John.
Just a question, so the recommendation tonight was to have someone on the CAC be on the RFP process. Is that something the board has to approve and then we would, okay,
So I'll present it to the board in 2 weeks. They may or may not do anything. I will follow up and staff will follow up to make sure they either yay or nay it, and when they start the process, decide how they want to do it.
As far as appointing of one of our members, would that be a September item? Or
No.
it depends
It'd be up to the board, whatever they want to do it.
Oh,
And it would be in line with whatever, it's gonna come back to Nick quite a bit, so it'll be
Right.
with that. Wasn't there an ask last time? I don't want to do, I'll ask you after the meeting. Okay, any public comment? Anybody online? Okay, John, you have a committee member report.
yeah, just real quick, since we were meeting in August 23rd from 10 to 12 a.m. in Half Moon Bay. There's the third in the series of, we had Roots and Watts and then Wetlands and Watts, and this will be Waves and Watts. I think it's a PCE grantee event. So there'll be some beach cleanup, there will be a climate carnival game, it'll be a family friendly fun event, and there'll be PCE tabling and yeah, welcome you all to attend.
And half.
August 23rd.
Have that link.
Yes, and I have another event, August 7th. Actera is hosting, one of their EV, sort of vegan EV kind of, events. I don't know what they're calling it. Anyway, they have a group of people who own EVs who will come and bring them just so that members of the public who are interested can come take a look and check out different EVs.
Have a month to buy it.
Talk to somebody who owns one. And this one, in addition to just having them on display with the owners there and talk to, they're also gonna have some dealers there who will be providing EVs to test drive. So if anybody is in the market for an EV,
When
was
this again?
this is August 7th at Stanford Research Park. I think it's 3000 El Camino in Palo Alto from 3 to 7 p.m. August 7th. So my husband and I will be there with our EVs. There's several other people who'll be coming, bringing their RVs, and you can test drive. I don't know what vehicles they'll have available to test drive, but should be a really fun and informative
you
event.
said August 7th, that's
August 7th.
Thursday.
Is there any,
What, 1, 2?
is there any public comment? It's exactly 9 o'clock. I can almost get us out. If there's any public comment online. All right, we are adjourned. Yay, thank you.
Yeah.